go.
Let's do this. Let's do this, folks. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Yeah, so today we're covering the astrology of 2024, as I have briefly introduced while Rax was problem solving. And I am a traditional Western astrologer, so is Rax, right? We both have been doing astrology for a while, I guess. And what would you like to introduce yourself? I feel like.
Thank you, Anastasia. I appreciate it. Yes, we've been doing this as a bit of a tradition already for like a couple of years. I think this is the third year, if I'm not mistaken.
Second for this, but third collaboration. So yeah.
There you go. So I'm glad to be I'm glad for us to be back together and to be talking about such a big year for Aquarius in particular, but also for a lot of other signs. You know me,
Yep.
you know Anastasia. I'm a traditional / evolutionary / humanistic astrologer, so I do bring in a little bit of some of the more kind of like modern approaches, but I love a good traditional technique. So let's just go with that.
Yeah, I feel like when I even found you originally and saw your content on YouTube, I resonated with it a lot because I think we have similar approach. We sort of see things from a very similar perspective. And so I know, like you said, you add additional techniques to it. And that is also always fun to hear what other sort of perspectives are there.
I agree.
Right. So should we start? Should we talk about astrology of 2024?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So 2024 is pretty busy. There's a lot going on, right? And one of the biggest transits occurs pretty early on in January 2024, and that is Pluto's ingress into Aquarius. We did have a preview of Pluto in Aquarius last year between March 23rd and June 11th. So for anyone who's watching, if you guys want to take a look back, if you want to reminisce on what kind of themes were introduced and brought up for you last year, might be interesting to sort of compare the notes. This year in 2024, Pluto will be in Aquarius for most of the year, right? It starts on January 20th, lasts until September 1st, and it goes from... And then there's a bit of Capricorn again between September 1st, November 19th. And then on November 19th, it enters all the way until 2043. So good news for some of us cardinal signs, I think, right? Like Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. Especially if you had your rising sign or any planets in the last degrees of those signs, you would have felt Pluto in Capricorn quite strongly. So Pluto is leaving Capricorn. Bye, Pluto. But then all of the fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus, will feel it strongly. So what are your thoughts on Pluto and Aquarius?
Mixed feelings, mixed thoughts, Anastasia. Obviously, from a collective standpoint, if we look back at the first half of 2023, probably the big piece of news has been AI and ChatGPT and the use of artificial intelligence, which is a very kind of like Pluto and Aquarius thing. So it's going to transform society as we know it through the use of technology, through the use of this sort of like force to be reckoned with that we don't even know yet. I don't even think we have kind of like the full picture in terms of how big an impact it can make. I don't even know. I don't think anyone knows actually what sort of power it has and what sort of power we're going to give to it. And is power not such a like Plutonian word, so to speak. So obviously we've gotten a taster, we've gotten a preview of the next 2 decades with Pluto and Aquarius. I think we're just gonna kind of like build up on that quite a bit. Cardinal signs have been dealing with Pluto transiting Capricorn for what, like the past 14 years, if I'm not mistaken?
Since 2008.
Yeah, 14 years. I've seen so many people around me with cardinal placements who basically had their lives turned upside down, but not necessarily for the worst. Some of them for the better. Was it like a pretty process to watch at all times? Absolutely not. Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely not. But there is like one particular friend who comes to mind, who's a Capricorn rising. Basically, he went through like a complete kind of like 180 degrees in his life. He got married, he got divorced, he went kind of like really low in terms of like finances and material situation. Now he's kind of like building himself back up. And it's so interesting to look at, literally to look at him, even from like a physical perspective. Now at the end of this transit, he basically looks like, it's so funny. He looks like a new person. He literally physically, it's like he has been reborn. And the funny thing is that at one point you could tell that he was not going through an easy time. You could tell that he was having a hard time. You could see it in his face. And now, like at the end of this transit, it literally feels like he's kind of like much younger in like a very weird way. So very, very, very interesting to watch how cardinal signs have been dealing with this. I've been dealing with Pluto transiting my 7th house of relationships for a long time, and I have to say, it hasn't always been easy, but for the most part, it's been freaking amazing. I mean, I've moved countries to be with my husband. I consider myself very lucky to have found my life partner. So it has transformed my life through relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely for the better. Although we've had to face, and especially myself, quite a few inner demons along the way, which Pluto has a way of kind of like stripping us naked and just putting us face to face with the deepest recesses of our soul and saying, okay, there's nowhere to run. You just have to face it. You just have to. My rising sign is Cancer, so in case people are wondering.
So this applies. People who are with Aquarius rising should listen for that, or Leo rising will have Pluto in the 7th house. I'm, as a Libra rising, had it in my 4th house, and I totally moved across the ocean, moved so many times, became a citizen in a different country, lost some family members, which I attribute more to the fact that Saturn was together with Pluto. So Scorpio risings are getting Pluto in the 4th, but Saturn will not be together with Pluto. So fingers crossed, it's going to be like a happier time for you guys. But it's like you said, it's not always easy, but it brings tremendous empowerment, right? It brings tremendous growth in the process.
Yeah.
And this year it goes up to 2 degrees. So anyone with prominent placements in Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, Scorpio in early degrees, you will feel it quite strongly. How early are your Aquarius placements?
I do have a Saturn at 0 degrees.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And I've already.
You're gonna be like the next. What's like, I don't know. Somehow I'm thinking of Star Wars references, but like you're gonna become either Master Yoda or like Darth Vader. But I think knowing that you use your powers for good is gonna be Master Yoda, probably.
I think I read it. I love that. I think I read somewhere that Pluto definitely empowers us to a certain degree. Sometimes it empowers us through a power struggle, through like a challenging kind of like power dynamic with someone. Sometimes it literally bestows power upon us, and it says, "Okay, are you going to use this for good, or are you going to use this for bad?" Right. It kind of like tests you in that in that way. What is the saying? If you want to see what someone is made of, give them power, and that will give you a good understanding of their character. But also I think there's more kind of like changes probably coming in terms of like my one-to-one relationships with others, since Saturn is the ruler of my 7th house. So let's see. Who knows? We'll see how that plays out.
I think Pluto also brings up fears, right? Like one of the big part of Pluto is that initially we have to face our shadows. We have to deal with fears. We have to face that inner intensity. You cannot hide from it. You cannot run from it. On a global level, a lot of astrologers have been talking about like past examples of Pluto in Aquarius, right? There was one that basically the one before last was in 1532 until 1552. And that was the time when like heliocentric revolution happened. I think many people before then were telling everyone that it's not the world revolving around the earth, but it's the earth revolving around the sun. And so at that time, that actually sort of became more prominent. There were some changes in the church. That's like a big thing of Pluto in Aquarius. Before then, since 2008, we've had Pluto in Capricorn, and Capricorn tends to be more sort of conservative and traditional. And we've seen so many people across the world like grabbing onto power, right? And like holding really, really tightly. And so Pluto in Aquarius a lot of times tends to be about major shakeups in power and major changes in power. And so the previous one, the one that happened 245 years ago when Pluto was in Aquarius in late 18th century, that was the Industrial Revolution, which we're seeing now with the AI. That was the French Revolution, the fall of monarchs, and sort of development of middle class. There was a lot of scientific developments. Uranus was discovered. Uranus, our rebel and revolutionary and groundbreaking planet. So we can expect potentially a lot of those developments again, right? Rux mentioned AI, drones becoming more prominent, right? Sort of developments in government. Maybe we'll see what happens with all of these monarchs grabbing power. I was actually listening to the Astrology podcast, and Austin Kopach was talking about how like Aquarius is opposite Leo, and how so many baby boomers are all born with Pluto in Leo. So they will be going through their Pluto opposition, including some of the people in power right now, including like Vladimir Putin and some other we're not going to talk, I hope, a ton about politics, but there's definitely some shakeups coming up, I think, in that way. Like Aquarius tends to sort of delete old structures and build the new ones.
Yeah. And I do think Aquarius is such a politically orientated sign overall, because it's concerned with groups of people and kind of like tribes, and we're probably going to see some sort of reshuffling of the amount of power that each sort of smaller kind of tribe and subsections kind of portion of the collective has. Pluto is also very suspicious, let's not forget. So we're probably going to see kind of right now we're saying, oh yes, social media is listening to us and Google is listening to us and I get served ads. I think we're going to see this sort of supervision kind of state via social media. So government using social media, using kind of everything that you do online to get your kind of blueprint even more in order to try to have power over you. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think right now something like this exists in the likes of China, where basically there's kind of one app that is connected that is kind of your social media, and that controls all of your kind of bank cards. And for example, if you get a fine because you kind of cross the street in the wrong place, they just automatically take the money out of your one kind of account. So
I had no idea that exists. That's interesting.
Scary. So I do think there's, I mean, Pluto is very kind of suspicious, and it wants to hold power, but behind the scenes. So what we're seeing right now with kind of social media, with the algorithm and so on, I think it's just we're just kind of scratching the surface to what the internet and social media is gonna do to us in order to kind of have that sort of information about us and try to control us in some shape or form. I mean, I'm sounding very paranoid and suspicious right now, which is also a very Plutonian thing, right, folks? So just putting it out there.
But I mean, Aquarius is a social sign. It's a sign of connection. And when Pluto goes into it, it transforms how we connect, right? And it transforms the rules and the laws around connection. So for sure, I think even with all of the developments of virtual reality, augmented reality, and everything like that, I bet, in 20 years, everything will be so different. Maybe the aliens will come to us. That
would be nice. That would be nice. Speaking as an Aquarius myself, we wouldn't mind. Give us a sign. I'm kidding.
Right. Yeah, you just gotta, I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. I was just saying we're here in case anyone is listening from outer space.
Right. Yeah, you just got to keep in mind that, every sign has its like shadow side and it has its bright side. And Aquarius can be sometimes too like focused on the bright future to a point of like ignoring the present, ignoring the immediate, and like just trying to get us to that sort of great place, being too idealistic, being too sort of stubborn in some ways. So we got to be careful that we don't just like kind of forget about the present and think about the future too much.
Exactly. And that we don't forget also about the individual. It's not just all about the masses, because like Aquarius loves the masses and loves to empower the people. But what about like the individual as kind of like a standalone entity?
And that's why we have Jupiter in Taurus right now, reminding us to slow down and to connect with our bodies. How has Jupiter in Taurus been for you the last 6 months?
You know what? It's been really nice. I just feel like, and Jupiter is the ruler of my house of work. And I just feel like things have reached a very like stable and calm and very kind of like fulfilling and very comfortable place in a way. Definitely my circle of friends has expanded, which is a very Jupiterian thing, because Jupiter is transiting my 11th house of groups of people. But I've also got Uranus there at the same time. And there have been some people who have exited my life very suddenly and very kind of like in a very kind of like unexpected way. But no, it's really good. It's overall, I feel like it's been a very calming influence. How about you?
It's been pretty good. It's in my 8th house, and I've experienced a lot of blessings through people in my life, like including like my boyfriend getting a pay bump and his dad buying us tickets to go to a Broadway show. And like I have a trip coming up that is basically, also like I'm invited to come, and I use some points to buy the ticket. So it's just like, it's all very magical. And I've heard, I haven't had a chance to test it. I wonder if you have, that Jupiter tends to behave a little better in the day charts. Like the gifts tend to be more noticeable versus the night charts, because Jupiter is of the day sect. Have you noticed that?
I can't say that I've noticed maybe this big a difference between day and night, although technically Jupiter indeed is said to be more kind of like impactful in a day chart. What I have noticed is people paying more attention to the gifts of Jupiter when they have a strong or kind of like a well-placed Jupiter themselves in some shape or form, or kind of like well aspected Jupiter in their own chart. But sometimes I've had people who are like, I'm not feeling this. And I'm like, oh God, why?
Sometimes you have to point them towards it. And then they're like, yeah, I guess actually.
Yeah. It's actually not going too bad. I'm like, well, it's good. I mean, sometimes people just expect, I mean, we're human. So we kind of like expect everything to be like big and noticeable and in our faces. And sometimes the blessings of Jupiter are just, things are going well and smoothly without obstacles in a certain area of life. And I think that's also worth gratitude and appreciation. Exactly.
Yeah. So in 2024, Jupiter will move from about 5 degrees until the end of Taurus, 29 degrees Taurus. So if you have planets in Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, and water and earth signs, Jupiter will be sort of harmoniously supporting you. And the thing here is also Jupiter has been retrograde for about 4 months. It stations direct in 3 days from now on the 30th of December. So for people who are not feeling the blessings, you may start to feel them more. And then April is a big month, right? Because we have Jupiter sort of speeding up, connecting with Uranus right before it's about to exit. What do you think April will bring us, Rox?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm super excited for like the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. It happens approximately like every 13, 14 years. Obviously it's like a time of like big breakthroughs, like big kind of like discoveries, big kind of like massive progress in some shape or form, because that's generally what Uranus wants to do. It kind of like pushes us forward into the future, and Jupiter says, okay, more
bigger. Yeah.
Let's do this. So probably like some significant kind of like scientific breakthroughs, big discoveries. Both Uranus and Jupiter have a special affinity with the concept of freedom and liberty. So there can be some sort of like expanded, like a sense of like expanded like freedom and liberty, probably in like Taurian areas. So I'm thinking of money, I'm thinking of the economy, I'm thinking of finances, I'm thinking of our body, I'm thinking of food. Here in the UK, we don't know if it's going to happen, and I'm not going to get into the politics, but essentially there's very significant talks right now before the elections in the spring of next year,
Okay.
before the big conjunction between Uranus and Jupiter. There's talks about slashing inheritance tax. So once someone kind of like passed, then they're like the people who, their children, the people who inherited their estate, they had to pay like a massive tax, I think like 40% or something on,
Oh, wow.
on goods and assets that had already been taxed, because let's say like a parent died and they had, I don't know, like a house, and they had already paid tax on the money that they used to buy the house. And then the state, after the parent died, came in and said, you know what, we're going to take 40% again out of that.
Crazy.
So I mean, I have no idea of how kind of like the economy works, but there are like some very significant talks on both kind of like ends. Both like the two big parties are supporting this in the UK. They're also thinking of like slashing taxes up to a certain kind of like I don't know, until you make like a certain amount of money. So there's already some significant talks about like more access to like more resources. I mean, obviously we've seen like huge inflation this year with Jupiter and Taurus. We've seen like prices go through the roof. The cost of living has gone through the roof. But at the same time, there's on the horizon this sense of like, okay, you're going to have access to more money as of next year. And I think, and please folks, whoever is listening to this is not financial advice. You are completely responsible for whatever it is that you do with
Disclaimer.
Big disclaimer. But I think it's going to be a huge moment for the crypto market, for digital currency and the crypto market. Whoever is kind of like keeping track of the crypto market, there's been like a significant rise, especially in December, but also in the past, kind of like in the past year, like a steady rise. And we've seen this month like a big jump from like the big players on the market. I think we're going to see some sort of like huge milestone moment in April around the crypto market and the digital currency space that is probably going to legitimize them even more, and make them kind of like a part of the, I don't know, of the kind of like established financial order. There's already like talks among like the big players, like I don't know, the big players who are kind of like making investments in the world around treating certain kind of like crypto assets as you would treat like, I don't know, like regular like stocks, essentially. And there's going to be some new regulations passed. So
also from Pluto and Aquarius, right? We just talked about Pluto and Aquarius. It's all along the same lines.
Exactly. And I think we're probably also going to see some big discoveries or some big scientific breakthroughs, maybe around like food and nutrition and agriculture potentially. But probably also quite sci-fi a little bit, because we know Uranus likes things to be a bit out there. So
right. Already, I think there's been some unity of like AI with, the AI with Pluto and Aquarius and Jupiter and Taurus. I think they've like sped up research of a lot of things and have discovered different materials that can use to build things with. Because Jupiter and Taurus like sturdy, solid things. That's why like around the time of April, lasting all the way into May, because Venus will join Jupiter and will also be there in her domicile, in her home sign. Like you can benefit through investments, through buying lottery tickets, sort of experiencing sudden opportunities. Be on the lookout for those, because Jupiter and Uranus can also create like a sense of expansiveness that you don't necessarily have to act on, because Jupiter likes having a good time. So it's good to act on it, I think. And it's especially important for people who have planets around 21, 22 degrees of Taurus, any other fixed sign, earth or water signs, because then you're going to feel this the most. Should we talk about Jupiter going into Gemini next?
Yes, yes, yes. Excited about that. Everyone who's got like air placements in their chart is
Yeah.
really gonna like this. Jupiter
Yeah,
going.
as a Gemini moon, I'm pretty excited about that. I've already been feeling it because like it's my ninth house and I'm already like, what can I study? What else can I study? As a Gemini moon in the ninth house, I'm already like always sort of exploring new things. So even more so.
I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
And the last time it was in Gemini, I was just kind of like going back a little bit through the ephemeris, was between June 2012 until June 2013. So
Okay.
folks could look a little bit back and have a think about how their life expanded, what sort of like new opportunities, how they took maybe leaps of faith, what sort of like new adventures they jumped into 12 years ago, June 2012 until June 2013.
Yeah, Jupiter in Gemini tends to be pretty like curious and open-minded, and I think there's an energy like of that learning, maybe not always deep learning, but sort of exploring different topics. That's where a bit of a challenge may lie, I think, is like too many possibilities, too many options. So try to narrow your focus down to one or two. I do like that in early. So Jupiter goes into Gemini on May 25th and stays here until June 9th, 2025. And in early June, it's going to be trining Pluto in Aquarius. So everything sort of ties together, right? Helping you follow your goals, helping you be more sort of focused, productive. Use this curiosity of Jupiter in Gemini to achieve things that Pluto in Aquarius desires. We talked about power, right? Hopefully you're using your power for good and trying to make positive change in your own life and in the lives of other people. So that will be very kind of supportive and encouraging of kind of growth in life, getting promoted, getting sort of, you know, more affluence, influence in life. Jupiter will be squaring Saturn though. So there's a little bit of like, you know, I think you get like a lot of excitement in April, May.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's these opportunities, there's these openings, there's these financial sort of things I can do. And then Jupiter goes in Gemini, and this curiosity, this like excitement, this multiple ideas will run into the realities of Saturn. So
I know.
Have to
August. Sorry. I was about to say August and December mostly of next year. You're gonna feel it, folks.
Right. Yeah. So some kind of like reality check, some type of, you know, like Saturn is, I like thinking of Saturn as like a teacher, as, you know, as like a principal, and Gemini could be like rambunctious twins running around school, and Saturn is like, no, sit down, you got to do your homework. So you may have to get like heavier load from Saturn, some kind of lessons that you have to work through instead of like run away from.
Exactly. I like that. I like that. That's a good image to keep in mind. Any other big ones? Well, let's see. The North Node, the transiting North Node is moving through Aries the entire year, and the South Node through Libra. We're gonna have the eclipse seasons, 2 eclipse seasons, like always. One in the spring, one in the autumn coming up. The North Node generally points towards a direction of growth and expansion, and there's Judith Hill calls the North Node as indicating a point of power surge, and the South Node as a point of like power outage. So in the North Node arena, things kind of like come into your life and they grow. In the South Node arena, things maybe need to be let go of and released, which a lot of people don't really like to say goodbye to certain aspects of their life, but
especially in Libra, relationships, you know, common sort of comfortable patterns in life.
Exactly. So it is going to be a lot about continuing to revisit our approach to relationships in various kind of like aspects of our life, and also making a judgment call on where we need to compromise and accommodate others, and where we need to stand our ground and kind of like be loyal to ourselves first and foremost, regardless of whoever supports us or doesn't really support us. I'd say Eclipses, when are this happening? So there's one coming up on the 25th of March. I always say also pay attention to the week before and the week after. It is going to be a full moon lunar eclipse in Libra at 5 degrees of Libra. And I have to say, I have to be honest, I quite like this eclipse because the ruler of the eclipse is going to be a Venus exalted in Pisces. So I think there's going to be a certain like softness to this eclipse. If we are kind of like seeing a concrete, tangible outcome or like a milestone moment relationship wise, it's probably going to feel like a very heartwarming one, or one that we're kind of like emotionally at peace with. We might even feel a sense of relief in regards to what's coming up relationship wise in our lives. Plus Venus is going to make a nice aspect to Jupiter, to Uranus. So I do feel like there's a sense of optimism after having hit a milestone in our relationships. There's a sense of optimism in terms of what the future brings, in terms of kind of like growing in a direction that is much more aligned with what makes us feel heard and listened to, it what makes us feel good, even when it comes to our most like vulnerable and softest parts, I'd say.
Right.
Then we have an eclipse on the 8th of April, new moon solar eclipse in Aries. I mean, talk about power surge, new beginning, big new beginning in the Aries sector of your life. The eclipse is happening at 19 degrees of Aries. So whoever has cardinal planets, angles in the natal chart around 19 degrees, I mean, you can allow for like a few degrees of orb. So maybe we can say 17 to like 21, 22 degrees of cardinal signs. You're going to feel this the most. It's a very interesting
total eclipse too. It's going to be visible like on the eastern side of the US. I think multiple states, like including New York, Pennsylvania, like a bunch of other states, you will be able to see it. Although, you know, many, I would personally not necessarily go and look at it because like I don't want the gods to sort of strike me. I mean, they won't necessarily, but maybe I'm a little bit more superstitious.
I think there's there's so many superstitions around the eclipses. I even had people asking me, are they good? Are they ominous? I'm like, I mean, depends what aspects they're making to your planets. That's what I say. At a collective level, eclipses were considered to be a little bit sometimes ominous because they might have indicated a change in power. And maybe kind of like the fall of a king and the rise of another ruler, and people like stability and they don't like change. So if at eclipses change was coming, so they were like, no, thank you, no change, this is bad. So that's why I think eclipses generally get like quite this bad negative reputation sometimes.
And people didn't know in the past what it was about, right? Suddenly the light becomes dark, and then people attack, change power happens, of course. This April eclipse also happens with Mercury retrograde at the same time, so that's an interesting signature.
I was about to say, that's gonna be a funny one. So like a new beginning, but something that we had already thought about, maybe something that feels kind of like necessary, something that feels like we're maybe a little bit kind of like pressured to step into because Mars is going to be conjoined to Saturn and Pisces. Maybe like
a lot of Saturn influence, like with that first March 25th, Venus is also close to Saturn, right? And now Saturn, Mars. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe like whatever is coming up at the time of the eclipses is probably here to stay for a while.
Right. Yeah. And take a look back at April 20th, April 19th, 20th of 2023. So maybe this retrograde and the second eclipse is bringing back thoughts that you have thought but didn't say. Like what Rex is saying, something that you have not expressed fully. So now is the time to actually express it.
Very likely. Very, very, very possible. And I think fear is going to be a big theme. So kind of like feeling the fear, such a cliche, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, whatever it is. But yeah, with that Saturn kind of like influence, I feel like there's going to be a lot of like a sense of like caution and like maybe feeling like fearful and restricted, but at the same time realizing that, okay, there's a new path opening up and you can't just pretend that it's not there.
Right.
So that's the eclipse in April. Then in September, on the 17th of September, we have the first of a series of eclipses that's going to last for the next couple of years on the Pisces Virgo axis. So 17th of September, full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, 25 degrees of Pisces, with the moon conjunct Neptune and both luminaries, the sun and the moon, in a harmonious aspect to Uranus and Taurus and Pluto and Capricorn. This is going to be a very interesting one. So a very kind of like soothing in a way eclipse, but also an eclipse of bringing up
an eclipse, right?
I'm like still in eclipse, so I'm thinking of like forgiveness, I'm thinking of surrender, I'm thinking of release, I'm thinking of a letting go, but at the same time there's probably been quite a bit of like emotional suffering there, so maybe the point of suffering is kind of like coming to a close, but nevertheless that doesn't kind of annul the feeling of maybe like powerlessness that existed before letting go of this aspect of our lives. At the same time, I do see it. I'm going to put it out there. I see it as a healing eclipse in some shape or form, especially on an internal level, because we've got that Neptune coming in, which is kind of like very almost like relaxing. You know, when you're hurt and they give you, I don't know, painkillers. This is how I see the eclipse with Neptune coming in. It's like, we know you're hurt.
Here's some
drugs. You're gonna feel better. It's like it doesn't take away the suffering, all the pain that you felt up until this point, but now it's kind of like we're gonna make it more peaceful and calmer for you, and like slowly but surely you're gonna let go of the pain. That's what that's how I would interpret it.
It's interesting to see that too, with like, Saturn being in Pisces, Neptune being in Pisces, and now we're also starting to have eclipses in Pisces. It's just all of that, like what feelings have you not felt? What sort of loss have you not processed? Where have you like not been sort of united? Like I think to me, like topics of beliefs and spirituality and your support systems come to mind, because the South Node will move into Virgo. We'll be letting go of a little bit of that analytical need to know every single detail and connecting more with spiritual Piscean, like boundaries in the boundless spiritual support. Yeah, like sort of more ethereal topics.
I love that. And also I see Saturn in Pisces as taking the spiritual and the emotional a lot more seriously than maybe we have taken it so far. So not just kind of like skirting around it and saying, no, I don't feel this. I'm not gonna be hurt. I'm not gonna be vulnerable.
Productivity, capitalism, gonna achieve, gotta work hard.
Saturn in Pisces comes in and says, if you don't sleep more, you're gonna get sick. And
for sure. Yeah.
Last eclipse of 2024 is going to be the one coming up on the 2nd of October. It's a Libra new moon solar eclipse, 10 degrees of Libra. So whoever's got cardinal planets, angles around 10 degrees of Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer is going to feel this eclipse the most. It is a new beginning relationship-wise that involves letting go maybe of an old agreement, of an old aspect of the partnership. So maybe there was like a pre-existing dynamic within a relationship, and after the eclipse in October, it's like, if you want to continue to have this relationship, it's got to work differently. It cannot work in the same way that it has worked so far. I'm not necessarily a big fan of the fact that the eclipse is going to be squaring Mars in Cancer. So do I see potentially some domestic arguments for couples? Yeah, probably. And as a result, maybe having to agree to maybe live together, cohabitate together, or kind of like attend to each other's needs or respect each other's emotional needs in a different way. Yes.
Being more honest, I think, comes through with the eclipses, like all of them, I think. And Mars will be in Cancer for a really long time next year. It starts on September 4th and then until about November 3rd. And then Mars goes retrograde from 6 degrees Leo until about 17 degrees Cancer between December 6th and February 23rd. And then it's again in Cancer between January 6th and April 18th. So we will, I think, like, you know, questions of like energy, how we use our energy, how we what's like close to heart, what is worth protecting, what is worth nurturing when our resources are maybe limited, because we're also having those like Jupiter Saturn squares with Mars being in Cancer. So asking some important questions, like I said, you know, what's worth investing into, what's worth protecting, what's worth like nurturing. Mars retrograde, I think, will be especially significant for like cardinal and fixed signs, because it's going from Leo into Cancer. Do you have much to say about the retrograde of Mars at the end of the year? Anything to add?
I'm not looking forward to it. No.
It was a Cancer rising.
I am a Cancer rising. I mean, yeah, that's all I've got to say. But folks, if you've got any other water placements, so if you've got some Pisces in your chart, if you've got some planets in Pisces, some planets in Scorpio, the Mars retrograde in Cancer is probably not going to be. You're probably not going to feel it as kind of like negatively, I'd say, because it's going to make some harmonious aspects with your water placements, and maybe also with your earth, with some of your earth placements. Nevertheless, Mars retrograde in Cancer, like passive aggressive at its best.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're feeling like you're boiling inside and that you're boiling over, listen to that inner child who maybe has something to say and maybe has a need that hasn't been tended to. And are you likely to have much more of a shorter fuse and to sulk in a corner and to feel more irritable during the Mars retrograde? Definitely. But look back at where it's actually coming from. So don't take it at face value, because it could be very, it could feel very easy to take it out on someone who's kind of like close to you, like a family member or someone in the house, but it might not be their fault. I mean, they could come across as irritating in one moment, but ask yourselves, why is this really triggering me? Why do I take offense at this so much? Why is this such a problem for me? Because they're probably not the issue. The problem might be much older and coming from well, probably childhood, to
Right.
put it that way.
Yeah, and go for a swim or volunteer, do something that, you know, like takes the focus away from. Of course, don't push your own emotions aside, but also do things to express that Mars in Cancer energy. And don't forget to be kind with yourself. I think like self-care is a big one too. Because when Mars is weakened, you can never go wrong by leaning into Venus. And Venus is not retrograde next year. So there is some good news. I want to mention Mercury retrograde dates, just so people know what's happening with Mercury. So the first retrograde, obviously we finished the retrograde that we're in right now on the 1st of the month of January, which is quite exciting. Jupiter stationed direct on the 30th of December 2023. Mercury goes direct, so we're sort of getting that forward momentum. There's going to be, actually, before even the retrograde, between January 27th and March 31st, we have all planets direct, which is sort of highlight, you know, the time to take action, start all of your projects, because when you start things, you get the chart of the moment you started as the initiation chart for that project, that sort of relationship, partnership. So that's a good time to sort of hit things in high gear. But the first Mercury retrograde begins on April 1st, lasts until April 25th. And that is retrograde of Mercury through Aries from 27 degrees to 15 degrees. So if you have planets and cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you will feel this the most. You may have to revisit some of the topics connected to those planets. Then we have a mixed retrograde between August 5th and 28th, and that is from 4 degrees Virgo into 21 degrees Leo. So Leo is getting like a lot of action next year, I think, with that Pluto opposition, with Mercury retrograde there, with Mars retrograding in Leo. So there's a lot of sort of, it's interesting too, because like, to go back to Pluto in Aquarius for a second, right? Like the opposition Pluto in Aquarius will be making to Leo, and questions of like power, celebrity, sort of status, control, all of those things, I think we are very much collectively and personally rethinking what those are for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the final retrograde of Mercury will be between November 25th and December 15th. And that is from 22 to 6 degrees Sagittarius. So that is also kind of interesting because we are right now in Sagittarius Mercury retrograde. So we'll potentially, at least, I mean, this one, the final one in 2024 will not be squaring Neptune anymore. So I think it will potentially have a bit more clarity. But if you have been as a Sagittarius rising, for example, or someone with strong Sagittarius placements, if you have been revising, rethinking your life and your intellectual projects, your writing projects, you may have to do that again at the end of 2024.
Exactly. A lot of like Mercury retrograde in fire signs for most of 2024. So topics such as creativity, traveling, education, taking risks, competition, a lot of kind of like having to revisit those topics during the Mercury retrogrades. People are asking, what sign are we on? We're not on any signs yet. Perfect time, because we are going to go into the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs in a jiffy. Anything else that we should mention about the
There is this little transit that I'm personally super excited about, and that is Venus-Mars conjunction on the 22nd of February. You know, cannot go wrong when the planet of love and desire. No, the planet of love comes together with the planet of desire. It's sort of, we don't get those super often. It's probably once every 2 years, right? I'd say. And that is just so sort of steamy, passionate, and inspired, great for leadership, great for like relationships, connections type energy. And you can give it, it's not going to last super, super long, but you can probably give it a couple of weeks on each side, because Mars and Venus are hanging out together for a while in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I like that. And it kind of like emphasizes the passion, but also the romance in relationships. So that should be really nice. Yes.
Especially for all, you know, I'm a Libra rising, so I'm always like, what is Venus doing? What is Venus? So Libras, Taurus, Aries, and Scorpio, all Mars and Venus ruled signs. This is the one to circle for you.
To really look forward to. Exactly. Shall
Anything
we?
You want to add before? No?
That's what I was thinking. We talked about the retrogrades. I think that's pretty much this is pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm ready for the horoscope part if you are.
Let's do it, because I know a lot of people are waiting for that very update. Let me just write the timestamp. So we're at 56 minutes. We're gonna start.
You can do that. That's awesome.
I think so. Let me just see. I'm trying to put something in the comments. So 56 minutes, 25. Talking about Aries. Yes, now it seems to have posted. Folks, we are diving into the 2024 update for Aries suns.
Take us away.
Let's do this. So my lovely Aries, especially Aries risings, you know, both Anastasia and myself always say, listen to the update for your rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, your sun sign is going to suffice, but find out your rising sign, because that's going to be much more aligned with your lived experience. So Aries, what is going on? Well, big transit, Pluto, planet of power, of transformation, of obsession, of death and rebirth, is going into your 11th house of goals for the future, plans, friends, communities, until the first, 2nd of September, depending on where you are in the world. And then for a little bit of time, it's going to slide back into your 10th house of career. And then it's going to go back into Aquarius on the 19th of November until the end of 2024. So pretty much from the 21st of January until the first kind of like few days of September, and then middle of November until the end of 2024, you're going to really get that Plutonian energy in your friendship circles, in the organizations that you're a part of, the communities that you're a part of, as well as in regards to your plans for the future. brace yourselves, brace yourselves, Aries, because it does look like you're going to get a very significant preview in 2024 of how your involvement with groups of people, how your involvement with certain organizations, how your involvement with certain communities is going to change and transform and is going to shift for the next well, as I said, for the next 20 years. Are you likely to access more power and have the possibility to make more of an impact upon the groups of people that you're a part of? Definitely. Aquarius is actually a sign that sextiles Aries, so you can definitely make your mark for the greater good on the groups of people that you're a part of. You can definitely leave that sort of like very strong imprint and very strong influence upon the communities that you're a part of. You may decide to completely leave behind certain friends, certain groups, certain communities over the next 2 decades. And that's okay, because that's generally what Pluto does. It says this part of your life has to die in order to be replaced by something more truthful and authentic and aligned with your core self, and something that's going to put you much more in touch with your own power. Are there going to be potentially some interesting maybe revelations about your friends over the next 2 decades, but starting as early as 2024? Yes. Are there likely to be certain life-altering transformations that your friends go through over the next 2 decades? Yes, definitely. Because Pluto is a transpersonal planet, it might also feel like it brings from the outside events, people, circumstances when it comes to your friendship sectors and communities. Circumstances beyond your control, or circumstances that you did not necessarily choose to be actively involved with. That doesn't mean that it cannot be impactful in a beneficial way, impactful in a positive way. On the absolute contrary. Have a think about Aries, especially Aries risings. Have a think about what sort of significant, intense, profound, transformative impact you want to make on society, because Pluto going into your 11th house is going to help you with that. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I love the fact that the North Node is going to be transiting Aries the entire year. Big fan of it. Physically, you're probably going to feel stronger. You're probably going to continue to connect with your body in new ways, maybe develop your body in new ways, move your body in new ways, and kind of like there's a sense of like strengthening that the North Node generally brings, and also a sense of novelty. It's like, oh, I didn't know that my body had the potential to, I don't know, climb up the Himalayas, for example, but it very well might. This is really a good time. 2024 is a great time to get strong. And I mean it physically, to get strong. You may also continue to discover new sides to who you can be, which I also like. I'm a big fan of tapping into our potential. Uranus and Jupiter are going to come together on the 20th, 21st of April, but you're probably going to feel it second half of April, the conjunction between Uranus and Jupiter, very, very strongly, dear Aries. Some sort of big breakthrough, unexpected, maybe expansion, growth, opportunity coming your way from a financial perspective. So pay attention to maybe unconventional and unexpected ways in which you can make money, in which you can make a living, in which you can earn a living. If there's technology involved, fabulous, because Uranus loves technology. If there's a little bit of science involved, fantastic. Be prepared for something to literally come into your life from nowhere, like a lightning bolt, and say, okay, are you going to capitalize on this? I mean, I'm a big fan of Jupiter myself, and I say, go for it. But also take into account the fact that it might be a novel way of expanding upon your income, expanding upon your resources that maybe you haven't even considered so far. So Uranus does love to take us by surprise from the south side. So I generally recommend keeping an open mind. Jupiter is going to go into your third house of communication, of short distance traveling, of neighbors, of siblings, from the 25th of May until the end of the year. I like this. I like this. Jupiter is basically supporting you last week of May until the end of the year to learn something new, to write. It's making things very kind of like smooth and easy, and it's offering you protection and blessings and good luck when it comes to learning and writing in general. Also, if you're looking, for example, to buy a new car or to learn how to drive, fabulous time with Jupiter transiting your third house. For those of you who have siblings, siblings might be going through a period of expansion and a period of developing and growing into more well-rounded individuals. You might also feel really confident generally from the last week of May onwards in your opinions and in expressing them and sharing them with the outside world. And Jupiter's like, yes, I know what I'm talking about. And let me teach you and let me preach a little bit to you. And I love a good dose of Jupiterian confidence, because I feel like confidence is probably something that society is at all costs trying to steal from us in this day and age, telling us you're not good enough and that's not good and you should try harder and you haven't hit your milestones. So I really, really appreciate when Jupiter comes in and says, you're fabulous. Just go and share what you've got to share with the world.
Right.
But careful not to take on too much. So too much learning, too much kind of like new speaking opportunities, too much writing. Especially in August and in December of next year, Saturn comes in and says, slow down a little bit, or are you sure you can do all of this? Don't stretch yourselves that much, Aries, especially mentally, I'd say. Eclipses. Let's see. So we've got a few interesting eclipses coming up. 25th of March, a lunar eclipse, so point of culmination in your relationship sector. I feel like some of you could be hitting like a big milestone moment relationship-wise, where there's a sense of overcoming an obstacle relationship-wise, or overcoming some sort of a blockage relationship-wise, maybe something that was sabotaging the relationship from behind the scenes in some shape or form, and maybe a sense of being more connected or feeling more emotionally at peace with someone that you are in a relationship with. At the same time, I have to flag to you, Aries, that eclipses have a way of pointing out what is no longer aligned with our fate and destiny moving forward. So if anyone leaves your life around the 25th of March, it's not bad. Think of it as the universe giving you kind of like a little bit of a nudge towards your highest and greatest good. The eclipse on the 8th of April is happening in your first house. I like this. This is exciting. Maybe you're kind of like stepping into a new identity, a new persona. Maybe you're showing up into the world in a new way. Being also much more aware of some of your blind spots, and maybe having worked on some of these maybe behind the scenes, especially from a mental health perspective, maybe from a spiritual perspective, maybe from an addictions perspective. 17th of September, a full moon lunar eclipse activating your axis of service and health. Some Aries are probably going to say goodbye to a job around this time. That's what I'm seeing. But I'm also seeing a sense of maybe letting go of some sort of a blockage on the health front and feeling healed on the health front. And of course, last but not least, 2nd of October, there's going to be a solar eclipse in the 7th house of relationships, once again for you, Aries. Some sort of a new dynamic within a relationship, or a new person coming in that is in some shape or form significant for you. It could be a partner, but it could also be a collaborator. I see this as being probably very significant for financial partnerships, because Venus at the time is going to be in your 8th house of other people's money. So see who comes into your life, and how can you make money with them, and maybe how you need to really define the parameters of the agreement. And of course, I have to mention the Mars retrograde, because I'm talking to Aries here. So my lovely Aries, your ruling planet is going to go retrograde from the 6th of December 2024 until the last week of February 2025. The retrograde starts in your 5th house, and then it goes into your 4th house of home and family and living situation. Okay, slow down, Aries. Slow down and don't take too many risks, unnecessary risks. Oh my God, I can't stress this enough. Don't gamble throughout this period. If you can, please don't. And I literally mean don't gamble. Don't take kind of like chances that involve too much risk taking and just say, yes, I'm always lucky with these things. I'm like, no. With Mars retrograde, you might not be. There's such a thing as too much fun, and too much fun can result in pain and hurt and I don't know, kind of like hurting yourselves even physically. There's generally a big recommendation for Aries risings in particular to be careful when it comes to fun and play and games that are physical, and also when it comes to when it comes to sharp tools and tools that involve heat in some shape or form around the house throughout this period, because things could go a little bit south and blow up. So when you're cutting something, you're making a salad, just like do not rush with Mars retrograde. That's just my recommendation. And sure, some old conflicts with family members might pop up again. Are they going to give you a chance to maybe make amends, or the other person to make amends and to take responsibility for how they've hurt you? Yes. But are you going to feel angry at times and not really understand why? Because of something that happened maybe like 20 years ago? Also very possible. And I think that is Aries.
I just want to add one thing, that I wonder if some Aries, with all of that Saturn sort of ruling the house of career, ruling Pluto going into the 11th house, I wonder, like you spoke about them sort of taking on a different role in the collective. I wonder if for some of them, Saturn in the 12th house is about stepping into the role of like a healer, someone who is doing more spiritual work, maybe sort of connecting with your talents, with your interests, because Jupiter is going into your 3rd house. Could you be like partnering up with some people and starting a business, starting sort of like teaching, healing, sharing? And of course, for different people, it will show up differently. But I think like the 12th house influence could be about bad habits, but could also be about like, what are you not acknowledging that needs to come out, that needs to be integrated into your personality, right?
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think there's also something that maybe bringing a more charitable side to their career in a way. So kind of like doing good for the sake of good, for the sake of like helping others, not necessarily. Helping communities, not necessarily for the sake of like ambitions. And I mean, Aries is a very ambitious sign. It's a cardinal sign, but they might go through a bit of a change of goals in that regards.
Right. So Taurus, would you mind taking the time, Rux? Would you?
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, so if you are a Taurus rising primarily, you can also listen for your sun, but rising takes priority. Starting with Pluto, on January 20th, Pluto enters your 10th house, and Pluto will stay in your 10th house for pretty much 20 years. There will be like a quick period between September 1st, November 19th, when Pluto returns to Capricorn to finish maybe there's legal matters, maybe there's some old beliefs that you're still sort of processing, maybe you're working on believing in yourself, but something you're completing, something you've been sort of involved with. Either it's an education chapter, or it's just like I said, cleaning, letting go of old ideas and philosophies that you've held dear for a long time. I think a lot of it feels, especially with Jupiter in the 1st house, as you believing in yourself more. Rux spoke about confidence when she talked about Aries rising. And I think for Taurus rising, this is a big part of kind of the year theme, with that Jupiter Uranus in the 1st house, like learning to present yourself differently, learning to believe in yourself more, learning to ask for things that you want and things that you deserve. And so Pluto starting the 20-year chapter in your 10th house is going to make you face some fears. We talked about Pluto as the planet of like shadows. So there might be some shadows coming up in your work environment. There might be some shadows around your public life, around bosses, around sort of status. And as you face those shadows, as you don't like hide away from them, you can experience a really big transformation in your career. So say you face some kind of difficult situation with your boss, you're asking for a raise, they're not listening to you, they're not giving it to you, and you decide to start your own business. So you can experience, Pluto moves very slowly. Pluto's transit lasts 20 years in Aquarius, right? So it's like a slow burn. And Taurus is a fixed sign, so you're not necessarily super excited about change, right? But you may you may be almost sort of forced, but also like encouraged to take control, to make changes to your career. Pluto in the 10th house a lot of times becomes, you may experience more hunger for power, more desire to be in charge. It's not necessarily the most obvious kind of look at me type power as Leo might be known for. It might be more about control behind the scenes. Because it's Aquarius, I wonder if you're bringing in some kind of AI technology in your work. Maybe you're collecting with the community. Maybe you're expanding your reach, maybe starting to work for a larger organization. But one thing for sure, your influence, your kind of area of influence, your professional scope is likely to grow and your role is likely to grow. So I mentioned Jupiter real quick, right? But Jupiter will be in your first house. It entered your first house in May 2023, been retrograde for the last few months, about to go direct on the 30th of December, and then stay in your first house until May 25th. This is really exciting. Jupiter in the first house is the time of optimism and sort of cheerfulness and confidence and new beginnings. Sometimes people eat too much. That's the only downside of Jupiter in the first house, because it's like, have fun and be merry. And so everything is just like in abundance. So that's the only concern you sort of need to watch out for. But it's the start of a new cycle. So once again, even eclipses are highlighting houses of like work and sort of health and vitality for you. So with Jupiter in the first house, you're growing, you're taking on new projects, you're showing up in the world as Jupiter, as teacher, mentor, guide, person of sort of empowerment towards other people. It's not always, 2024 is a big year for planting seeds. You may not see things immediately because Taurus is a yin feminine sign. There's a little bit of time for the seeds to grow. But you're starting that 12-year cycle of changing your role in the collective, stepping up more into that sort of teacher guide type role. And Jupiter conjoins Uranus on the 20th of April. The energy is felt April, May. You can sort of, give it longer period. And that could be the time when things develop very rapidly, even though Taurus is more of a slower sign. But in April, there is a lot of things going on in April, and that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is like a sudden surprising opening, an opportunity coming into your life. Like some kind of new beginnings, maybe opportunities to have more freedom, maybe opportunities to start a business, to sort of present yourself differently, to explore new possibilities, travel, business, anything that sort of shows you to the world, I think, as a revolutionary, like you're the one who's sort of making the change happen. And then after May 25th, Jupiter is going into your second house. So after you have done some work on discovering yourself, Jupiter will be in the house of money and values, trining Pluto in the house of career. So if some of you are getting raises around this time, I'd like a note, I'd like a comment and sort of tell me how it goes for you. But it could definitely bring some opportunities for investment, maybe some intellectual opportunities. People born with Jupiter in the second house tend to value knowledge a lot more often, I think, versus just like money in the bank. Rox has her Jupiter in the second house. I'm sure she can confirm. It's more about like wisdom, right? Versus like just the money.
Yeah, but we also like money, so
gotta be honest, right? I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, totally. Money is freedom. That's why Jupiter in the second house talking.
For sure. Yeah. So financial opportunities, financial growth, like I said, in June, especially some positive developments with that trine to Pluto in the 10th house. There will be square to Saturn in the 11th in August, and then again in December. So perhaps some of your financial desires, some of your investments will have to sort of battle it out, or you'd have to find a better balance between those desires to invest, desires to make money, and your responsibilities to the collective, your duties to your friends, your sort of, it's like, I think Meryl Streep, I might be wrong, but I think Meryl Streep, or like some actor, I might be wrong, but there is like an actor who has that aspect, and it's sort of like an element of like, sometimes you sort of have to go for roles that pay you money, so then you can choose projects that are more fulfilling. So there might be some compromises you'd have to make before you get to that place of financial abundance. So let's see. Eclipses are happening in your 12th and 6th houses, with North Node being in the 12th, South Node being in the 6th. I remember last year when we were doing this live and you, Rux, were talking about how for you, this was the moment you quit your daytime job and became a full-time astrologer, right? So this is very much an aspect where you're examining your ethics around work, especially with that like Libra, your beliefs, your sort of, outdated principles around work. And especially you will likely to feel this in March. We have a solar eclipse in Libra on March 25th. And then we have a lunar eclipse in Libra on March 25th. And then we have a solar eclipse in Libra on October 2nd. So those are the times when that question of like, do you work too much? Are you happy with the way your routines are set up? Do you feel sort of pressured? Do you feel overwhelmed? Where are you being too accommodating, right? Like wherever Libra is in our chart, we tend to be very sort of diplomatic and friendly, and we don't want to stir sort of things, and we want to keep things nice and pleasant. But this eclipse is making you look at your everyday life, at your work, and sort of release anything that's outdated. So especially with the lunar eclipse on March 25th will be a completion of a cycle that started with the solar eclipse on October 14th, 2023, perhaps inviting you to rethink your work life, maybe let something go. And then on April 8th, we have a solar eclipse in Aries, your 12th house, at the same time as Mercury is also retrograde over here. And Saturn, Mars is conjoining Saturn in your 11th house. So looking at your dreams and figuring out how you can release your maybe things that are holding you back in your everyday life, and perhaps choose a more fulfilling, more spiritual career, something that gives you more freedom, even something that lets you rest a little bit more, because maybe you've been feeling like overloaded and frustrated. So those are the spring eclipses. And then September 17th, we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces, your 11th house. This is an introduction of a brand new cycle of Pisces Virgo eclipses that will bloom in 2025 more. And here you're looking at the sector of friendships, networks, hopes, and dreams. And I think all of these changes that you've been going through with rethinking who you are, rethinking what you want to be known for, this eclipse also makes you look at your connections, at your friendships, at people who, are in your corner, maybe even at your dreams, and potentially clear space for new beginnings. Maybe it's an opportunity to let go of a friendship. Maybe it's an opportunity to connect with people who are more spiritually aligned with you. But I think, I don't know, it feels to me like you're cleansing your connections, you're cleansing your involvements with other people, in order to have more space, or in order to have more soul-centered connections. We talked about October 2nd eclipse in Libra as, once again, some kind of new beginning in your professional life, but very much a shift from like being the workhorse to being the jockey, maybe, or to being the person who is calling the shots, or the person that has a bit more control over things, I think. Yeah. And then the final transit I'd like to mention is Mars going retrograde between December 6th and February 23rd, 2025. This is happening between your 4th house of Leo and your 3rd house of Cancer. And here I think you're looking at your family life and you're looking at your immediate environment, your comfort and security, and perhaps thinking of like whether your immediate environment is conducive to being the best version of yourself, what needs to be changed? Do you need to move? Do you need to separate some space for your office? Do you need to declutter? Do you need to put up better boundaries and have some serious conversations with your family members before you are able to sort of, you know, in order to have a better flow, I think, in order to have a better, like, because the retrograde moves from the fourth house of your living situation into the third house of like routines and communication and schedules and sort of like what needs to change in your immediate environment to have better flow, to have easier sort of communication, better commuting, better sort of dynamics, even when it comes, yeah, like it feels both, I think, about structures in your life and your everyday life, but also about communication and learning to like resolve conflicts and maybe communicate with kindness, but also assertiveness. That's what I have for Taurus.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I especially love the part where you said you're kind of like shifting from being the workhorse to the jockey, and like, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful metaphor.
Mercury in Libra, you know, works out once in a while. It's like, ta-da!
Yes. Yeah, that's a good image. That's a good image to keep in mind. Geminis. Okay, so let me just put in the timestamp into the comments.
I can do that. I can take on Gemini.
I'm on it. I was just about to like type in. Dear Geminis, welcome. You are going to have probably a much better year in 2024 than in 2023, because guess who's coming in to kind of like cheer on you? Jupiter, the great benefic, the bringer of good luck, of opportunities, of growth, of positivity, of optimism, of joy. Because let's face it, I think we might need some joy. I know quite a few people with Gemini placements that have been battered a bit by Saturn transiting through Pisces. So Saturn transiting through a mutable sign has been kind of like squeezing a little bit of the joy out of the Gemini life. So since I jumped straight into Jupiter, so Jupiter is going to go into Gemini in your first house of identity and new beginnings and the physical body last week of May. So on the 5th of May until the end of the year. What is this transit supporting? It is supporting you, Geminis, in growing and developing on an individual level, in tapping into more of your potential, in expanding your horizons and your view of yourselves in particular. It's giving you that boost of positivity and optimism to take a leap of faith in some shape or form, especially when it comes to relationships, collaborations, partnerships, and when it comes to your career. It might make you believe in yourselves a lot more, which sometimes is probably the number one thing that we need to make things happen and to accomplish some sort of success in our lives. Jupiter might also bring this kind of like expanded vision of an expanded sort of like view of the world. So you might see new perspectives, new possibilities, career-wise and relationship-wise in particular, that you hadn't seen before. As always, there can be a little bit of a risk of overdoing things, of kind of like taking on too much, of being excessive with Jupiter. Saturn's probably going to come in and kind of like squeeze you a bit and say, no, not too much. Don't kind of like say yes to everything. Don't start 3 business ventures at the same time. Don't kind of like try to network every single evening. Maybe you just kind of like bring a little bit of like structure and organization and planning into all of this and not overdo it. And Saturn's coming in and saying this, especially in August and in December of next year. Saturn is still in your house of career, Geminis, don't get me wrong. So you still have to put in the hard work and kind of like keep your head down, shoulder the pressure, shoulder the increased responsibilities, be very serious, take on duties, and really just kind of like keep at it professionally, because it's not necessarily the most like happy-go-lucky time. On the contrary, Saturn comes in and says, you need some concrete achievements career-wise. And if you don't have them, then we're going to make you feel quite bad about it until you get those concrete achievements. But as I said, Jupiter in Gemini is going to help tremendously. Jupiter is going to be in Taurus until the last week of May, until the 25th of May in your 12th house. I like this. Why? Because it's teaching you a lot about what you need to focus on in private, behind the scenes, in order to accomplish that sense of internal, emotional, mental, and kind of like mental health and spiritual stability. So Jupiter in Taurus until the last week of May might help you, for example, discover spiritual practices that make you feel safe in your body, might teach you about how to, for instance, prioritize activities such as listening to your body, maybe doing mindfulness meditations, going to yoga. And it's kind of like grounding you, but in a very kind of like spiritual way that also involves the body in some shape or form. So I really, really like this. Jupiter in the 12th house is also said to be the guardian angel placement. So sometimes out of nowhere, if you're going through a hard time, at the very last minute, someone or something comes in and saves you. So I do like a little bit of Jupiter in the 12th house from that perspective. Pluto is probably the one transit to pay attention to for everyone next year. Pluto's going into Aquarius, 21st of January, in your 9th house of long distance traveling, belief systems, our connection with a higher power, God, divinity, whatever we want to call it. The 9th house is also the house of academia and our academic path. So I'm thinking here of like going to university and things like that. The 9th house is also a house associated with mentors, coaches, gurus, teachers that enlighten us. They don't necessarily teach us how to, I don't know, work in Excel, but they teach us how to find meaning and how to see the big picture of life. So with Pluto going into Aquarius in this part of your chart, 21st of January until the 2nd of September, and then again, 19th of November until the end of 2024, Geminis, you're probably gonna start experiencing, and this is just a preview for what the next 2 decades have to bring in your life, Geminis. You're probably gonna start experiencing a massive, radical, drastic, profound transformation of your beliefs and of your life philosophy overall. I would not be surprised if some people all of a sudden discovered a spiritual path, a spiritual tradition, discovered God in some shape or form, and it kind of like blew their minds and it completely changed the way that they saw life. I would not be surprised if there were certain people who cut ties and kind of like buried forever and for good their connection with an existing spiritual path or religion. Same goes for political affiliations, because the 9th house is also very, very political. So you might start going through some very radical transformations of your political views in 2024, Geminis. There's also a possibility that your life might transform very drastically as a result of your connection with foreign lands and foreign countries and foreign cultures in 2024. For example, maybe you're going to start, I don't know, traveling more for work, or working with like a team that is based abroad, and maybe you connect with someone and they kind of like open up a new kind of like path for you professionally, and they make a long-term impact upon your professional life that you can't even foresee in the short term, but you are going to see the results of over the next two decades. And last but not least, the 9th house is also the house of in-laws. So you might see you might start seeing some significant changes in the lives of in-laws. That could actually have a positive impact upon you, an auspicious impact upon you, Geminis, because Aquarius is a sign that trines Geminis. So even if the transformations or the changes that are happening in the lives of in-laws maybe feel very, very life-altering and very serious, and maybe scary on the surface, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are bad in any shape or form, or they are bad or negative in the long term. A very profound connection you are probably going to start making with some sort of a higher power as of 2024, Geminis. That is Pluto in Aquarius. The transiting North Node Geminis is going to be moving through your 11th house of friends and groups of people the entire year in 2024. So you're probably going to continue to experience an expansion of your circle of friends, an expansion of the group projects that maybe you're involved that you're involved in. You might also feel like there are potentially some sort of like fated developments coming up in this part of your life. Maybe you're going to be introduced to a group of people that is going to have a significant impact upon your goals for the future, which is very, very possible. Especially pay attention to the eclipse season coming up in the spring, March, April, because that's when you could, for example, join a community, join an organization, which is likely to be much more impactful, especially from a career perspective, than you initially thought it would be. Material gains through friends, communities, and groups of people. At the same time, the South Node is going to be transiting your 5th house for most of 2024. And especially, you might notice this at the eclipse in March, 25th of March, as well as 2nd of October. You might start kind of like releasing some old passions, old hobbies, old ways of expressing yourselves creatively. And maybe if there were some old kind of like romantic flames that you were kind of like holding on to and not letting go of for dear life, you might kind of like feel like these are slowly but surely waning out of your life. Less of a focus on children, let's put it this way. Some of you could see, especially those of you who have older kids, might see, for example, children leaving the home and kind of like spreading their wings and flying, and you feeling like children represent or are less of a tangible focus for you in 2020 in 2024. Significant developments that involve a closure or an ending or a letting go connected with children. Maybe they finish school, maybe they wrap up an important chapter in their lives. Could be coming up, Geminis, especially at the eclipse in March. 25th of March, active week before, week after, and at the eclipse coming up in October, which is going to happen on the 2nd of October. And of course, last but not least, Mars retrograde. Dun, 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 dun. Mars retrograde is going to happen from the 6th of December until the last week of February 2025. So it's something that we're going to be dealing with in 2025. Also, the retrograde starts in your 3rd house, and then it goes into your 2nd house of income. You might need to like slow down or reevaluate or go over some initiatives, some old initiatives, old kind of like projects connected with your financial life, but maybe also connected with learning, writing, speaking opportunities, as well as buying and selling things. And I hate to say it, but there might be some car issues. I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. With Mars retrograde in your 3rd house, you might need to like fix something related to your preferred mode of transportation, maybe then fix it again. So yeah, that's what the Mars retrograde might bring. And careful, because your relationships with siblings and colleagues and neighbors might be extra sticky throughout the Mars retrograde period. So careful what you say, because it could all blow up with Mars retrograde. It's like, and that is Gemini.
Yeah, I like that. I have a close Gemini rising friend, and I think so much of what you were saying makes a lot of sense. I think like starting with that mindset shift, right, that then lets you explore more professionally or just change your life. Like definitely, I think Pluto in the 9th house is a very necessary and going to be like an interesting transition to see for them.
I like that.
So Cancer risings, and if you like to listen for your sun, Cancer sun. So Cancer risings, I'm going to start with the eclipses because I think that's like such a hot spot, especially, in astrology, we like angular houses. Angular houses tend to carry more weight. So I think it's a big year for your professional and public life. In 2023, we had our first eclipse in Aries in April. And this year we're going to get, in 2024, we're getting another eclipse in Aries on April 8th in your 10th house. And it's a big one because it's, Aries, North Node is currently in Aries pretty much the entirety of 2024. your South Node is in the 4th house. South Node is in Libra in your 4th house. So you are releasing on some level, especially around eclipses on March 25th, when we get a lunar eclipse in your 4th house. And then when we get a solar eclipse in your 4th house in October 2nd, you are rethinking, releasing, letting go of some like old patterns, old habits, old ways of defining yourself that are connected to family. You are maybe rethinking your living situation. On a deeper level, you are reviewing what comfort and security means to you. And you are getting ready, I think, to take more risks, to explore new territories. And the solar eclipse in 19 degrees Aries, your 10th house on April 8th, at the same time as Mercury's retrograde in your 10th house, is really significant because you are looking at your career and you're kind of questioning what you want to be known for, what you want to be seen as, and where are you, like, you know, the invitation here is like to be more brave. We talked about the North Node in Aries as that like just do it energy, right? Jupiter and Aries. Jupiter was in Aries when just do it for Nike was invented. So it's very much like just do it. Where are you standing at the sidelines? Where are you thinking about things? And where do you just need to take that leap? What's fascinating, for a second, to jump to Pluto in the 8th house. So Pluto will be spending most of 2024 in your 8th house. It's basically between January 20th and September 1st, and then again November 19th, and then for the next 20 years, it goes into your 8th house. And what you're doing with Pluto here is you are looking at your karmic agreements with other people, and you're looking at what needs to die, because 8th house classically has been a place of like death and rebirth, right? So here you're looking at your debts, both physical, literal debts, where you have some sort of financial struggles that you need to clear, that you need to sort of redefine so you have more freedom. And you're looking at your agreements and connections with other people. So I think that South Node energy with eclipses in Libra in the 4th house and Pluto being in your 8th house makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's like family karma that you're cleansing. Maybe it's old beliefs. Maybe it's just like even agreements in your relationship with your partner, business or romantic partner, some kind of renegotiation that needs to happen, something that you need to examine, right? And Pluto will make us face fears. So there might also be certain like fears and control issues around resources. Like it's very difficult if you are a young mother, for example, and you're relying on your spouse to sort of support you and your child, and it's like much harder to start new things, right? So for some Cancer risings, based on your existing situation, it might be easier or harder. But I think some kind of like transformation of your agreements, of your resources, of your dependencies on other people, that is slow, gradual, but also very empowering and very rewarding at the end. 8th house is also a place of healing. It's also the place of intuition and sort of mysteries and shadows. And so for some of you, it could be about bringing your intuition more front and center, and perhaps diving into some taboo topics, some, esoteric, mysterious astrology, tarot, sexual healing type of professional choices. Maybe also just connecting with that side of you, right? 8th house is a very interesting house because it's sort of things in it sometimes happen out of the blue seemingly, but they definitely, I think, encourage some kind of transformation. So do not be afraid, and perhaps try to initiate some transformations instead of waiting for Pluto to like surprise you. Saturn is in your 9th house still, right? Saturn went into your 9th house in March 2023, stays here for 3 years. It's still an indicator of you working really hard. Maybe you are, there's some kind of heaviness, some kind of seriousness to your mind as you're asking deep questions, as you're looking at the topics of travel, of belonging, of your knowledge. Do you know enough? Do you have enough? Do you like Saturn in the 9th is some kind of commitment to a long-term education potentially, right? or writing a paper, or working, like taking a lot more trips for work. There's some kind of like heaviness and maybe slower, more like seriousness to your mind, I think, as you're growing, as you're like asking big questions, and also like working on a degree, or you're working on a writing project, or there's some kind of legal issue maybe that you're also involved in. What's interesting, there's going to be an eclipse in Pisces in September. And this is our first eclipse in the Pisces Virgo cycle that will fully bloom in 2025. But in September 2024, September 17th, we get a lunar eclipse in 25 degrees Pisces. So maybe at that point you will start to see some kind of breakthrough with all of this, like internal, whether that's philosophical inquiries that you've been sort of dealing with, or if it's more external, some kind of breakthroughs around travel, changes of your place of living, changes of your status. Like I can see for some Cancer risings moving from a student to a teacher role more. If you're writing something, if you're in the middle of a writing project, this eclipse could be completion of that project and maybe embracing a role of like a writer potentially. If there is any legal matter that you've been involved in, maybe it sort of comes full circle around that time, but also very much healing, releasing. And with Pluto, like that Pluto energy in the 8th house, that sort of big chapter that you're on, releasing outdated beliefs, I think, maybe even releasing some kind of self-defeating tendencies that Pisces could be indicative of. I find wherever we have Pisces in our chart, we tend to have really weak boundaries, right? Let's be honest. I have it in my house of work. Do you feel that with Sagittarius in the 6th house, or a little less?
I feel it a little bit, but maybe it's because my midheaven is in Pisces.
Maybe.
Also, yeah, and I feel like at the same time I've had to work really seriously at setting stronger boundaries, like in a very kind of like focused and committed way. And also I think maybe the fact that Saturn is opposing my Jupiter helped in a sense, because otherwise it would have been like very kind of like overwhelming
Right.
to handle that energy. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Pisces is just kind of like giving, no limits, no boundaries. It's like, just turn me into a doormat and do what you wish. And
Right.
I'm doing this willingly. And sometimes it's not, I mean, many times it's not sustainable, actually.
Yeah. So maybe like that Saturn being in Pisces and the eclipse in Pisces is an invitation to put up healthier boundaries and prioritize yourself for a second, like figure out where do you need to give more to yourself versus giving to others potentially. So Jupiter is blessing you until May 25th. It's in its house Joy. It's in the 11th house, really loves being in the 11th house. Good luck through friendships, expansion of friendships, expansion of connections, better luck on social media. It has been, I've seen in the past for sure for some other rising signs, a lot of sort of ease in terms of connection with other people, in terms of partnerships. I would highly recommend, if you're looking for a job, just ask a friend to ask a friend to ask a friend. You never know. The connections can be very sort of rich and fulfilling at this time. April 20th is groundbreaking on many levels as Jupiter conjoins Uranus in your 11th house. Starts in April. In May, we have some good energy. So both April and May are sort of rich, full of opportunities for collaborations, for new social media projects, for starting podcasts, for working with other people, sort of starting projects with friends, being a leader, being sort of mentor, teacher, healer, anything like that is lovely. Come May 25th until June 9th, Jupiter goes in your 12th house. And that is also interesting. I think people become a lot more internally aware, more interested in building their spiritual practice, more sort of meditative and spiritual. So you may find that a lot of joy comes to you through doing yoga, through spending time in solitude, through exploring astrology. I know I'm curious, Rex, if you notice this, but I feel like every time people get Jupiter transit through the 12th house, they start to go to astrologers a lot more.
I discovered astrology with Jupiter transiting my 12th house. So
Really?
literally, like, yeah, almost like 12 years ago, that's when astrology came into my life completely unexpectedly, completely unforeseen. And Jupiter rules my career path. So it came
Yeah.
in through a work colleague. It was just insane. So yeah, major kind of like blessing for obvious reasons.
For sure. But I've been noticing a lot more Gemini risings coming to me for consultations because Jupiter is in their 12th house and they're all like, okay, I need astrology in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, so a lot more spiritual fulfillment is going to be trining Pluto around June 2nd, late May, early June. It's going to trine Pluto in your 8th house, which it could actually be some kind of financial opportunities. I didn't mention, but Pluto in the 8th house could also be quite transformative for your partner's finances and your partner's resources. Maybe they're getting some kind of inheritance or some kind of payment they've been waiting on. So that early June could be crucial for that. And then the only sort of difficulty I think you will have to contend with Saturn in your 9th house. And for those of you who have midheaven in the 9th house, that's like professional responsibilities that are quite maybe heavy at this time in August, December. Maybe there's some kind of restrictions that you're trying to balance versus that like imaginative spiritual healing, either healing of self or healing of other people, those like new horizons, desire to rest, desire to travel. You'll definitely need to balance some things and maybe say no to one because you have other responsibilities. And finally, Mars will be in Cancer for a while from September 4th until November 3rd, and then again in early 2025 for like 4 months. And then it will retrograde from your 2nd house, Leo, on December 6th into your 1st house of Cancer, and the retrograde will last until February 23rd. And this is, to me, you're looking at your finances, you're looking at your resources, you're looking at your spendings and how you're investing. That's the first part of the retrograde. And then you're potentially needing to address I wonder if there is like an invitation there to invest in yourself or to rethink your values, maybe. There might be more problems that you're dealing with. Retrograde in the 1st house tend to always be like you sort of have to go at it on your own. So maybe having to be more thoughtful, more careful with resources, finances, maybe needing to sort of like try to be really careful at this time to not overload yourself because your immune system might be more weakened because Mars in the 1st house, especially in Cancer, it's like we live in this culture where we have to go, go, go. But Mars retrograde in the 1st house, I just want to nap. I don't have inspiration. I don't have energy. So try to as much as you can, try to flow with those like waves and not push yourself extra hard. And it will definitely be some kind of issues around money can come up. Maybe your pay, maybe you need to you'd have to stand up for yourself, find solutions to some problems and deal with like asserting yourself, speaking up for yourself, and handling some like inner frustration through healthy outlets. That's my take on Cancer.
I loved that. And I also want to add, in the past, when Mars was transiting my 1st house as a Cancer rising, I hit my head every time. Literally, I'm not even joking. In the weirdest of ways. Like there was like at one point I remember I was like walking through my house in the dark for whatever reason, and I just like literally bumped into a wall and just like hit my forehead like so bad. It was like the stupidest thing, but it was very literal. Yes, exactly.
You gotta slow everything down.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, just like pay attention to the body also with Mars retrograde in Cancer. Some people are asking about the recording. So it's going to be saved. Yes. So the live is going to be saved on Anastasia's channel. And I'm also going to upload it as a recording on my channel, folks, for those of you who are here. It could take a little bit longer, maybe tomorrow on the 28th, but it's going to be ultimately on both of our channels, and people can come back to this at any point in January, in February, maybe. Who knows? Maybe they want to come. Yeah.
Throughout the entire year, check in every month.
Exactly. Return, please. Return and rewatch. Let's do the timestamp for Leo. So it's 1:52:18. And Let us dig into Leo 2020, Leo 2024. Dear Leos, 2024, big year of deep transformations and changes, especially on the relationship front. Um, People who may literally have a life-altering effect upon you are probably going to come in. They might come into your life, especially if you have an early kind of like Leo rising between 0 to like 2 degrees, or if you have planets in Aquarius in your seventh house of relationships, Leo risings between 0 and 2 degrees. Or if you've got planets in fixed signs around 0 to 2 degrees, people might come into your life and they might completely kind of like turn it upside down and transform it and push you to face your fears around relationships, push you to redefine power dynamics in relationships, push you to step into your power in relationships. Sometimes that can happen maybe in a less pleasant way by giving you a nudge to face your fears, by giving you a nudge to face your own shadows, by giving you a nudge to face your own, let's call it darkness and dark material around relationships. And there's no judgment here. Astrology doesn't judge. Astrology just describes. And there's light and dark inside all of us. We're not just beings of light from the divine. We're also incarnated animals. We eat, we sleep, we do all the things that animals do. Existing relationships might go through a rebirth. And a rebirth, maybe it sounds really kind of like snazzy on paper. It involves a death first, a rebirth, just as a bit of an FYI. You might discover things about existing relationships, existing partnerships that were buried and hidden that might come to the surface. Your partner, if you are in a relationship, if you're married, if you're in a long-term partnership, might go through life-altering events, potentially quite traumatic. They might lose someone maybe close to them. There is a possibility, for instance, that, I don't know, someone important in the life of a partner might pass or might leave, or something like that. And that might also have a very significant transformative effect upon the relationship itself, I'd say. There can be very obsessive, intense, profound experiences in relationships that also, once again, force you to face your own shadow within the realm of relationships. However, I am quite excited about the month of June. What is going on in June? So in June, Leos, let's see when exactly. Yes, that is right. In June, transiting Pluto in your seventh house of relationships is going to make a nice aspect to Jupiter in your 11th house of friendships and goals for the future. So in June, you might actually experience a very exciting, uplifting, positive, and jovial transformation of your plans and goals for the future through a partner or in connection with a partner. For some of you, this could involve, for example, a child coming into your lives. For example, for some of you, it could involve maybe your partner coming into money, or your partner going through some drastic financial changes that maybe open up an entire new realm of possibilities. And maybe you can, I don't know, like change countries, change lifestyles. So your future might look very, very different because of something auspicious coming into the life of a partner, which could be connected with money in general. I do want to put it out there. What else is going on next year? By the way, Leos, you're probably going to feel this energy that I'm talking about the entire year. It is very intense. It's very impactful from the 21st of January until the 2nd of September, and then from the 19th of November until the end of the year, until the end of 2024. The transiting North Node is going to continue to move through your 9th house of long distance traveling, belief systems, life philosophies, the entire year, opening you up to new worldviews, new perspectives upon life, new spiritual traditions, new beliefs, new teachers, also encouraging you to maybe connect in new ways, in novel ways, with different cultures, different countries, encouraging you to maybe approach the aspect of traveling, for instance, or of exploring in general in a different, novel way. I'm going to call them fated teachers, fated mentors might come into your life throughout 2024 and really change the way that you find meaning in your life. Some of you could experience a big aha moment, a big culminating point when it comes to your studies, or when it comes to your connection with foreign lands and foreign countries, or when it comes to a legal matter around the 25th of March. Maybe a legal matter that involves money in some shape or form, and you might feel like finally you can breathe easily and this is out of the way and you no longer have to worry about it. Some of you could be accepted for like a prestigious, I don't know, like degree, and maybe you've applied for a master's and you hear that you've been accepted into the program. So big results connected with studies or legal matters, or your connection with foreign lands and foreign countries. Also, a new beginning in this direction around the 8th of April. Maybe you're going to start, for example, collaborating with someone from abroad, or kind of like collaborating with a financial entity or institution from a different country, and maybe you need to kind of like learn new laws, new rules, and things like that. Since we've started talking about the eclipses, there are a few more eclipses that I want to put on your radar. The eclipse on the 2nd of October is the last eclipse of a cycle that started in October of 2023. That activated Libra as a sign in general. So the 2nd of October, 2024 brings in some sort of new beginning, Leos, in terms of how you communicate, how you interact with people on a day-to-day basis, maybe a new beginning in terms of your relationship, and in terms of your communication with a family member, a sibling, but also possibly a parent. I feel like you're going to no longer communicate in an old way. And maybe there's a sense of wanting to be more kind of like deep and profound and authentic in your communication, rather than just kind of like saying things that are not going to upset the parent or not going to upset your sibling, and kind of like staying surface level, just for the sake of keeping the peace. And there's going to be another eclipse on the 17th of September. This is happening on a totally different axis that we're going to deal with from September of 2024 all the way until March of 2020. No, I take that back. August of 2026, which is very interesting. So the eclipse in September, 17th of September, is going to activate your financial axis, Leos. So some sort of tangible results and kind of like turning points and culminating points from a material perspective for you, Leos, coming up in September. I am seeing the possibility of some sort of maybe big lump sum of money making its way to you, or maybe kind of like taking off your plate like a big debt, or like a lump sum of money in the form of an inheritance, or maybe like a big windfall for a partner in some shape or form. So significant kind of like pots of money connected maybe with the partner, or with institutions, or with partners in general, I'd say. Let's see what else is going on in 2024 for you, Leos. Okay, two more things I wanted to mention. So Jupiter. How did I not mention Jupiter? So Jupiter has been in your corner, supporting you, cheering you up career-wise, since the spring of 2023, since May of 2023. It's going to stay there until the last week of May of 2024, until the 25th of May of 2024, basically supporting you in growing and expanding your career, taking on new opportunities career-wise, taking leaps of faith career-wise, my dear Leos. Maybe stretching yourselves career-wise, taking a risk, doing something that you love more, that you enjoy more career-wise, maybe accessing power and support and investment and resources from others career-wise. Generally, I would recommend aligning ourselves with the energy of growth when it comes to Jupiter transits. So if you are thinking of, I don't know, launching a new business or adding a new service to what you do professionally, take advantage of Jupiter transiting your house of career. And also be on the lookout for sudden, out of nowhere, out of the blue, unexpected opportunities professionally coming in second half of April. Leos, with Uranus conjoining Jupiter in Taurus, there could be something like a lightning bolt moment. Maybe it's something connected with what's happening at a collective level, at an economic level, at a societal level, that has a radically empowering but also auspicious impact upon your professional life moving forward, Leos. If you move fast, if you are willing to shift gears, if you're willing to kind of like think outside of the box, and if you're not afraid to like disrupt the status quo of your professional path, Uranus and Jupiter coming together are saying this is big. We can catapult you in a new direction, but you have to be willing to make some big changes, some radical changes, some extreme changes, maybe shocking to the outside world. And of course, Mars retrograde, first week of December, 6th of December until the 24th of February, 24th, 25th. It starts in your first house. So Mars retrograde is going to be in your first house of the physical body until the first week of January of 2025. And then it goes into your 12th house. Careful not to burn yourselves out, Leos. Careful not to hurt yourselves whilst playing sports and games and things like that. If you're going to the gym, you don't have to lift excessively heavy just to like show off and prove that you are super strong, because that could go really, really horribly wrong with Mars retrograde in Leo. And then Mars going into your 12th house during the retrograde, second week of January 2025 until the 24th of February 2025. Yeah, there could be a little bit of insomnia. There could be some maybe like a feeling of something kind of like sabotaging you from behind the scenes. What I would look at is your own life philosophy and belief system, but also if there is anything pestering you or kind of like bothering you in connection with a family member, I would maybe flag this to them and just kind of like address it head on rather than it kind of like floating in the background. And that is Leos.
Perfect. Moving on to Virgos. Virgo risings, Virgo sun, potentially too. Starting with Pluto. So Pluto is entering your 6th house, will be in your 6th house for most of 2024, except for January 1st and 20th, and then September 1st, November 19th. Well, while maybe you are finishing up some romantic, creative projects, kind of figuring out, putting final touches on your romantic, creative, or parental relationships, maybe going through some kind of transformations, final transformations there. But Pluto is staying in your 6th house for the most part in 2024, bringing a lot of focus to your house of health, work, and service, and suggesting that the way things were done no longer feels right? Pluto intensifies, Pluto brings up shadows. So there might be some health matters that you need to address, whether in your life or in life of somebody close to you. Not necessarily something dramatic, but just some kind of like issue, like they're having an eczema, for example, and you're starting to become very sort of intense about it, and you dig deep and you try to understand everything. Like I think Pluto and Aquarius will bring like very laser sort of focus to your routines, to health, to self-improvement as you work on bettering yourself and as you work on like improving the lives of people in your life. There might be slowly but surely, because Pluto stays in Aquarius for 20 years, slowly but surely your routines will transform. You may take this knowledge that you have, this interest in health and well-being, and make that your job, make that a business, make that a new career. Definitely like different sort of relationships with colleagues, maybe profound changes to your work life, changing the way you approach work, changing sort of, you know, finding more power, I think, finding more control, finding more influence over your everyday life. And so, of course, a lot of things can transform in the process. Saturn is in your seventh house the entirety of 2024. You are dealing with some kind of pressures in relationships. Maybe you're asking important questions about what type of relationship you want to have. Your partner can be going through a more sort of serious period in their life, calling you to take more responsibility, to sort of be the mature one in a relationship. Maybe you're carrying more like a heavier load on yourself, on maybe there's more like of a weight placed on you, and also a lot of growth in relationships with Saturn in the seventh house. There's going to be a lunar eclipse in your seventh house on September 17th, which is very interesting because Saturn has sort of, you know, ruffled the earth in the seventh house, brought up a lot of serious relationship questions. And then on September 17th, we get a lunar eclipse in Pisces, 25 degrees Pisces. So if you're a Virgo rising of like 22 to 28, 29 degrees, this is extra big for you. And it's an introduction of a brand new cycle that will fully kind of continue in 2025, even into 2026, of a lot of relationship focus and some important relationship developments. So for some of you, this would be a moment that breaks the relationship potentially, if you feel like you've been carrying your partner and they haven't been sort of stepping up. And maybe it's the time when you realize that, you know, Virgo risings have Pisces in their seventh house. They can be quite idealistic about relationships, quite giving, quite generous in their relationships. So this lunar eclipse could be the time when you sort of look at things more realistically and honestly and realize what's meant to stay, what's meant to go. For some of you, it could be a moment where you come closer with a partner and maybe there's some kind of commitment, some kind of new beginnings. The rest of the year, we still have that strong focus on your financial houses, with North Node being in your 8th house and South Node being in the 2nd house. You are sort of going through transformation of your personal resources and leaning more heavily into partnerships, learning to trust. I think with Saturn in the 8th, perhaps you're learning to trust that you can, you know, handle the more difficult relationship dynamics, or you're maybe trusting your partner in some different levels. Maybe you're getting loans. Maybe you're sort of getting a mortgage and transforming your finances. Maybe you're becoming more open to partnerships and sort of trusting that, you know, you can, as a Virgo rising, let's be honest, right? How controlling are you? Tell us in the comments on the scale of 1 to 10, how much would you like to control things? So I think with this like energy of like North Node, and we're going to have a solar eclipse in Aries in your 8th house on April 8th. Mercury's retrograde there. You are rethinking how, you know, you're kind of asking how much can you trust the other person? How can you be more like fair in your relationships? And sometimes you have to let other people do their part. You don't always have to handle everything. At the same time, there's also lunar eclipses in Libra in your 2nd house on March 25th. We have a lunar eclipse. On October 2nd, we have a solar eclipse. So you're looking at your relationship to money. You're looking at your personal values. And once again, sort of like reevaluating things. Maybe letting go, maybe investing, maybe changing some kind of structures around resources, but also, once again, that sort of similar theme of like what is valuable, what's important in relationships, in your financial life. We love Jupiter in the 9th house until May 25th. Jupiter is expansive. Jupiter is growth oriented. A lot of opportunities, especially in April when Jupiter comes together with Uranus on April 20th, but give it a month on each side, of growth in the realm of education, opportunities to teach, opportunities to study, sudden kind of chance encounters with foreign people. Perhaps Jupiter rules your house of relationships. So for some of you, it could be like a crazy whirlwind romance with someone from a different country, but also like, you know, definite sort of mind-opening encounters, mind-opening experiences, a chance to study something, like chance to be a yoga teacher in Bali or something. Like, you know, here we're uniting the house of education, with the house of travel, with the house of writing and legal matters. It's all like very, very sort of rich right now with opportunities, or will be in April, May. Reaching out to teachers, becoming a teacher, connecting with community, you know, like finding new interests, exploring religion, rediscovering some kind of spiritual practice, all of that is a possibility. Jupiter then shifts into your 10th house of career on May 25th, stays here for about a year until June 9th, offering a chance to reinvent your career. But it's like Jupiter in Gemini, so you might be sort of struggling with two very opposite ideas of yourself, right? You might see yourself as like a creative person, but also a scientific person. You already do that most likely as a Virgo rising with Gemini in your 10th house. But there could be even more sort of dualities that you're holding dear, but more professional opportunities, more maybe, I think, like easier relationships with bosses, new sort of encounters, new people, new ideas, new projects, like very sort of mentally exciting time, especially in June when Jupiter trines Pluto in your 6th house on June 2nd. So late May, early June. There's like, you know, you're working hard. I feel like it's like hard work, commitment to something. Maybe Pluto in the 6th house brings an element of like becoming a nutritionist, becoming a doctor, becoming a person that like helps those misfortunate, unfortunate 6th house type people. There will be that energy between the house of career and professional opportunities will have to contend with Saturn in your 7th house in August and December. So you are dealing with like, you know, professionally, you want to go teach yoga in Bali, but your partner needs you because, you know, they rely on you and they want you to help take care of your, like, I don't know, there's a child maybe or something, or there is some kind of energy that some kind of questions in the relationship sector. And this could also be tension between like an opportunity to write a book and your business. There's like, you know, if you're not in a romantic relationship, there's different kinds of relationships. Last but not least, Mars goes retrograde between December 6th and February 23rd from your 11th house into the 12th house. And here you're looking at both your networks and your friendships, and also your maybe self-defeating tendencies in friendships. Maybe you're examining, you know, your tendency to give too much, or you're examining kind of unhealthy relationships. Maybe there's a lot of times I notice transits in the 11th house bring up some friendship drama where like a friend sort of stirs something, or they're going through a more difficult time. And so I think that energy from the 11th and the 12th, there is like an invitation to figure out how you can create better dynamics, both in friendships, but also in your private life. How can you handle stress differently? How can you have, you know, sort of more of a spiritual pillow to rest on?
I like that. I like the spiritual pillow. I think we might all need it with Saturn.
No one, yeah.
That's a good one. So Libras, let me just put in the timestamp. Let's see, especially Libra rising. Like so what is going on, Libras, in 2024 for you? Some releasing left to be done for you, Libras. I'm looking especially at the eclipses happening in your sign, activating your own sign. The first one is coming up on the 25th of March. It's going to be active week before, week after. I feel like you might need to release an old way of working on a day-to-day basis, an old way of functioning within relationships, an old maybe way of approaching in terms of habits and rituals and kind of like day-to-day practices. You might need to let go of an old approach on that front, relationship-wise. You could also be letting go of an existing work-related partnership. You might stop the collaboration with someone work-wise, but there might also be a feeling of, you know what, I don't need to show up as the person that I used to show up as work-wise. So there could be a sense of, okay, I can let go of maybe the image and the persona that I was kind of like bringing with me into the workspace, and I can be more relaxed. I can be my authentic self, and I don't need to keep this sort of like image up, kind of like attached to the way that I show up in my work. Some sort of culminating point health-wise, very possible also, my dear Libras. There could be some sort of like intervention, or just a feeling of maybe acknowledging that you need support from someone health-wise, maybe from like a practitioner, or like a specialist in some shape or form, that might need to kind of like help you get rid of something from a physical perspective. I mean, I've been hearing about Libra risings, for instance, this year, getting some of their wisdom teeth removed. So kind of like removing things for health-related purposes from the body. So there could be something, there could be a theme of that nature coming up in March, but also releasing a habit that is not serving you health-wise, which is also very, very possible at the time of the eclipse. And last but not least, of course, you might need to decide where a relationship is headed. Are you going to stay? Are you going to go? Are you going to move forward with it? What does that mean for you on a personal level? Does that mean ditching your old kind of like sense of self and identity? Very possibly, but is that bad? Not necessarily, probably not. It might be aligned with your destiny in some shape or form.
Big questions.
Exactly. Like really big questions. Is this person worth it? Is this person worth me leaving behind who I was up until this point? And should I stay or should I go? Another eclipse activating your house of identity and the physical body is coming up in October of next year, 2nd of October. New beginning in terms of how you show up in the world, maybe new image, new kind of like new persona, maybe new style, new appearance, but also maybe new way of handling, dealing, taking care of the physical body. I also feel like you're probably going to be showing up differently in your relationship, maybe either with a parent or a figure of authority in your lives. You might feel like, you know what? I don't really need to please this person who is my boss, or I don't really need to try to be the peacemaker at all times, just for this person not to kind of like blow up. The 10th house in traditional astrology is also associated with the mother, so this figure of authority could be the mother figure. I do feel like you're going to be more confident in showing up as someone who really values themselves, and who's really kind of like aware of their own worth at this point in time, especially in the professional sphere, because there's a lot going on in the sky in October on the professional front for you Libras. So yeah, remember that you are very, 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 very worthy and valuable, and whoever doesn't notice that, I mean, it's their loss pretty much. 2 additional eclipses next year. We're gonna whiz through them. 8th of April, new beginning, an eclipse, solar eclipse in your house of relationships. You might start working with someone new, maybe like a new work partner, a new collaborator, or you might collaborate. You might start a new collaboration on the health front, maybe a new coach, like a new therapist, potentially, a new doctor. But it really seems to be someone very impactful who is going to help you make some long-term kind of like progress and wins health-wise. 17th of September, full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, on the Pisces Virgo axis, activating your axis of work, health, and service. Some of you could be receiving some really good news about a job. Maybe you're getting like a very kind of like significant job opportunity, which might involve leaving behind an old job, leaving behind an old way of working, saying goodbye to an old team. Some of you could also feel ready to finally let go of maybe some habits that were sabotaging your health, mental, physical, emotional, and maybe they were inherited in some shape or form from parents, from ancestors, and so on. It also feels like you're wrapping up a very significant work-related project that maybe sucked a lot of emotional energy out of you in September. Very significant transits next year. Libras, Pluto goes into Aquarius 21st of January until the 2nd of September, then back into Aquarius 19th of November until the end of the year. So 2024 is a taster of the changes that are going to happen in your lives, Libra, for the next 2 decades as a result of a few of these life sectors going through a very kind of like drastic regeneration, a drastic kind of like death and rebirth. You're going to be experiencing transformations, Libras, as a result of big changes connected with children. So some of you could get pregnant, for instance. Some of you could maybe experience your children entering a new chapter, a new stage of their lives altogether, and that might kind of like leave you wondering, okay, who am I now if I'm no longer identifying as, I don't know, the parent of my children? If that's no longer the core of my identity, then what next? What now? You're probably also going to start in 2024 and continue for the next 2 decades, Libras. You're probably going to start transforming the way that you enjoy life, the way that you have fun, maybe burying and kind of like purging and releasing out of your life for good old hobbies, old passions, and old ways of kind of like finding fun and entertainment, and being open to completely kind of like new transformative ways of enjoying life and finding a sense of happiness and uniqueness. I'd say there could be an experience of some life-altering hobbies coming into your lives. Let's say, for example, some of you find, I don't know, astrology. I feel like astrology is such a good example to give, because astrology, when you find astrology to be very cheesy, I mean, when you really find it, it is life altering. Like there is no going back from that. So transformation through hobbies. What else? Uranus and Jupiter are going to come together in your 8th house of other people's resources, the partner's resources in April, second half of April. Sudden, unexpected windfall, potentially maybe coming through a partner, or potentially coming from work, because Jupiter also rules your house of day-to-day work. Maybe if you own shares in the company that you work for, all of a sudden the shares could go through the roof price-wise, and you realize, wow, like I've really got a lot of money. What do I do with it? So there can be like sudden expansion of investments and assets that you maybe have through someone else or in connection with someone else. Sudden aha moments, moments of like freedom and liberation, and I want to call them enlightenment in terms of fears and your own demons. I want to say you might liberate yourselves, Libras, from kind of like old fears, especially old fears connected with relationships, intimacy, money, work, and maybe even communication. And all of a sudden you might feel like, you know what, this is no longer a taboo topic for me, and it's no longer holding me back, and I am free. Ta-da! Uranus, the great liberator. And Jupiter likes freedom, of course, as well. And last but not least, Jupiter transiting Gemini, Libras. I love this. 25th of May until June of 2025, actually. Jupiter transiting your 9th house is probably going to bring opportunities, extensive opportunities to travel, especially for work purposes, to grow through your connections with foreign lands and foreign countries. So maybe you're going to be introduced to important people that kind of like open up your views of the world and introduce you maybe to new perspectives on how to find meaning in life. Maybe you're going to learn some practical skills from them, and at the same time feel like you're growing as an individual. Very supportive energy in terms of academic studies, in terms of advancing your spiritual studies in any shape or form, in terms of writing and publishing. If any of you Libra risings out there are looking to publish a book, I mean, take advantage of Jupiter transiting the 9th house, which is the house of publishing. And generally, I'd say yes to travel related opportunities, because they could also transform into spiritually enriching opportunities and professional opportunities at the same time. And that is Libra rising.
Yeah, guess who's thinking about studying yoga as the Libra rising? Da-da-da-da, Jupiter in the ninth. That
Perfect.
was beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of the personal transformations. Let them keep rolling. Sometimes people are like, when is it going to stop? And I'm like, you don't want it to stop because it stops when you're dead. You don't want transformations to stop.
I love that. That's such a good way to look at it. I mean, the only, what is it? The only certainty is change. What was the saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only thing that's constant, right? Everything else is changing.
Yeah.
Okay, Scorpio. Scorpio rising, primarily Scorpio suns, if you like to listen for your sun, or you can listen to your moon. So the big one is Pluto going into your fourth house. In 2024, we're getting almost the entire year except for January 1st, 20th, and then September 1st, November 19th, when it's still in Capricorn and you're finishing looking at your third house. Maybe you're sort of finding more power in your words because since 2008, you've been growing as a more passionate, more empowered communicator. You've changed your relationships with your community, with your siblings. So Pluto and Capricorn, those like small periods in January and then September, October will be opportunities to just sort of polish that. For the most part, though, Pluto will be in your fourth house, and that's a slow sort of start of Pluto's ingress into your fourth house, especially important if your ascendant is between 0 and 2 degrees Scorpio, or if you have planets in 0 to 2 degrees fixed sign Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius. Pluto in the fourth house is deep change in terms of power dynamics in the family. It could bring up shadows in the family. It could bring up secrets. It could bring up sort of foundational elements where, you know, you live in the house and you don't know that there is like, I don't know, there is a treasure hidden underneath. I wish it for all of you Scorpio risings that you discover that there is like treasure, gold in the basement. But of course, there could just be, you know, some kind of other problems you discover with the home, because Pluto tends to bring up a little bit of like fears initially. Some of you might move. I'm finishing this up. I moved so many times, including the move from Russia to the US. So moves are definitely in store. I think in general, any sort of challenges you face in the home or in the family, they're all meant to empower you. They're all meant to help you stand on your own 2 feet, process sort of unhealthy family dynamics, release of anything that ties you deeply, like, you know, maybe something that's outdated that you're processing, so that like you can establish your own unique identity. And in the process, you may see family deaths, births, you may see moves, you may see sort of, you know, don't worry about people dying. It's just like it's a lot of times it's a metaphorical death and rebirth where you learn to be more confident and more assertive and sort of more clear about what you desire. And like watch out for a tendency to sort of control things or manipulate things and just sort of cling to the way things were, because most likely Pluto will call you to let go of the way things were. Saturn is in your 5th house the entire year. You're still sort of looking for inspiration. You may feel a little bit like, you know, Saturn went into Pisces in early 2023 in March. You may have felt uninspired. You may have sort of felt stuck a little bit or stagnant in your relationships or in your creative self-expression. In 2024, I think you're starting to move a little bit faster, especially because Saturn is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is going direct at the start of the year. And so as Jupiter is moving direct, conjoining Uranus, there might be more inspiration, more partnerships, more opportunities happening for you. So Saturn in the 5th, definitely like taking credit for your sort of taking control of your creativity, becoming more structured with it, becoming more serious about parenthood. If you have recently become a parent, you're realizing how hard it is. You're sort of implementing new rules, becoming more serious about fun, right? Maybe letting go of some unhealthy habits, maybe scheduling fun. I think Saturn in the 5th house can sometimes just be like, it's all work, work, work. When are we having fun? Let's put it on our schedule, right? Let's put the note on the fridge. There is going to be our first ever eclipse in Pisces, not ever in the world, but first in like the last 9 years in a long time, eclipse in Pisces in your 5th house on September 17th introducing a new chapter of eclipses in Pisces and Virgo that will be more sort of unraveling in 2025, 2026. But this eclipse could bring some kind of culmination to the hard creative work that you've been doing, or it can bring changes around parenthood, getting pregnant, giving birth, moving a relationship to another level, releasing some bad habit, releasing sort of, like fifth house can sometimes be the place where we party too hard, where we maybe like drink a bit too much, we gamble a little bit too much. So lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 17th can definitely encourage you to let go of some unhealthy tendencies. Similarly to North Node being in Aries the entire year in your 6th house, and April 8th bringing an eclipse in your house of health. At the same time as Mercury is retrograde in your house of health, North Node brings a lot of attention to it. So it calls you to rethink your habits. It calls you to rethink your work, to sort of own your power more, right? Aries is like, what can you do for yourself by yourself? So here you're learning to step into your power, take control of your body, right? Like establish better routines, take on projects that maybe require more physical energy. So like becoming a business owner, becoming a fitness trainer, some kind of like physical. 6th house is also very much a place of like health and service and doctors and lawyers. So you can also see developments there. At the same time, South Node is in your 12th house. We have a lunar eclipse on March 25th. In the 12th house, we have a solar eclipse on October 2nd in the 12th house. And those are the dates when you're likely to encounter the shadow of yourself. You're likely to sort of deal with your subconscious, become more clear about your, maybe something you haven't processed, maybe something you haven't released, maybe some people-pleasing tendencies that you don't acknowledge in yourself, right? Like Scorpio risings tend to be very cautious and very careful, but you have Libra in your 12th and you have Taurus in your 7th. So there are definitely some sort of very peacemaking type of qualities you have that you may have to address and see where they not serving you potentially. At the same time, Jupiter is in your house of relationships. So there's some good relationship karma, good juju romantically in your 7th house. Until May 25th, you have Jupiter direct blessing your 7th house. Good connections, right? Like any sort of agreements, contracts you need to make. Like if you're selling your house, you may find like a better real estate agent. If you're looking for a lawyer, you may find a better lawyer. If you're dating, you may connect with someone and sort of start a new relationship. Your partner may be experiencing more blessings, sort of easier life, easier sort of growth potentially. And then come April 20th, we have this sudden development, unique opportunities, kind of growth and expansion of your relationship life. Anything from new business opportunities, new contracts, new romantic changes, right? Like getting engaged, getting married, meeting someone new who will become your life partner, signing some kind of fun contract is also likely. And then after you have worked on the partnership and sort of had some new exciting beginnings, Jupiter goes into your 8th house and trines Pluto in the 4th house in early June. So Jupiter will be in the 8th from late May until June 2025. And you're looking at the house of other people's resources, at debts, taxes, mortgage, and it trines your house of home, family, and living situation. So could you be investing into a home? Could you be getting some kind of bonus or some kind of inheritance or some type of like support from the family that is helping you pay off debts potentially? So like really good time to work with other people. You may experience like higher commission. Of course, there's still square to Saturn in the 5th house. So your resources will be perhaps also sort of, redirected. You will have some kind of debts, some kind of like duties, responsibilities to children, for example. Like you get an inheritance, but your child is starting kindergarten and you need to buy them, I don't know, a boat. Not a boat, but like you need to invest, you need to sort of pay for your child's education, or you need to like, you're starting a new partnership, but then you need to spend money on building a website or something. So there's a little bit of like push and pull in August and December as Jupiter in the house of like blessings coming from other people squares Saturn in the house of duties to children and romantic partners. And finally, Mars goes retrograde between your 10th house and your 9th house between December 6th and February 23rd. And to me, this feels like you're rethinking your career. You are asking whether you get enough recognition and whether you need to go and get more education, or whether you need to relocate, or whether you need to sit some exams and take some exams. Maybe you need to find a different guru, different teacher, different guide in order to build up your career. But it could be a little bit more of a frustrating period professionally at the end of the year. So, yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, you take the good with the more challenging, and you make a big soup out of it.
For sure. Very Pisces, very Jupiter, Saturn, and Pisces. Yeah.
All together, like a big mash. Let me just put the timestamp for Sagittarius. So 2 minutes 37. Well, 2 hours 37. Not 2 minutes.
I know.
We've been talking for a while.
We're moving though.
Yeah. We are at Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius risings, especially Sagittarius risings. As we always say, listen to the update for your rising sign. What is going on? Sag, I have to address Jupiter first and foremost because it is your chart ruler. So we're going to start with that. Jupiter is going to continue to transit your house of day-to-day work and health until the 25th of May. So it is continuing to say yes. Jupiter is the yes planet. It's like, okay, you want to do this? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna shield you. I'm going to protect you from like hardship and obstacles and challenges. You've got this. You can do this. Where is Jupiter saying yes for you, Sagittarians? Work on the work front. So if you are looking for a new job, if you're looking for a better paid job, if you're looking for a job that would allow you to have a better work-life balance, Jupiter is saying yes. So go ahead and take advantage of this period. Jupiter is going to make you super busy work-wise. Don't get me wrong. I remember when I had Jupiter transiting my 6th house, my work day was packed. Like it was like my to-do list was like bullet point. So don't get me wrong, it is a very busy time, but you might enjoy it. You might enjoy it, and you might also, well, you're very likely to see some practical, concrete, kind of like tangible results out of it. There's a sense of maybe growing as a person through the work that you do. Maybe also until the last week of May of next year, you could discover and you could expand your vision and your philosophy and your kind of like horizons when it comes to health. So maybe trying out or testing out new health related practices, holistic practices. Generally, Jupiter transiting the 6th house is also very supportive for healing purposes. So if you're going through anything health-wise, Jupiter is coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to speed up the healing process. I'm going to make it work really, really well. And it's also supporting you. Jupiter is supporting you in expanding upon the healthy long-term habits that will increase the sense of comfort, security, stability, and safety within your body. Jupiter coming together with Uranus, big astrological event of 2024, second half of April. Be on the lookout for sudden, random, surprising, shocking opportunities work-wise. There could be like a job offer hitting you out of nowhere. You did not even apply for it. You did not even think about it, but bam, here it is at you, and you might need to decide: should I stay? Should I go? Should I go for it? What should I do? What is the right thing to do? I would obviously recommend saying yes, because Jupiter is, after all, the planet of expansion. It is the planet that supports us when it comes to growing and developing in a new direction. I'm also looking at the fact that when Jupiter and Uranus are coming together, Venus is going to be transiting your 5th house. So there could be like a sudden job-related, unexpected opportunity coming up in April that would allow you to tap more into your creativity or to bring more of your passions and hobbies into your work. So I'm liking this. I'm liking this overall. Jupiter is going to go in your house of relationships 25th of June, my apologies, 25th of May of 2024 until June of 2025. So it's going to be there for a year. This might play out in a variety of ways. So I'm liking a Jupiter transit through the 7th house of relationships, especially for those of you who are single. If anyone's single, if we've got Sagittarius risings that are single, that are kind of like excited, they're like, I want to meet someone, I'm ready for a relationship, da 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 da. Jupiter says, yes, I might give you two options, Sagittarius, and I'm speaking on behalf of Jupiter. I'm going to give you choices. Jupiter loves choices, and especially Geminis. Gemini, like the Gemini energy, loves choices, loves to kind of like maybe have a variety of options. Relationships overall are likely to function quite well if you ask me, with Jupiter on your side. You might discover either new sides to an existing partnership, expand upon existing partnerships, develop your in a good way, in an auspicious way, in a positive way, your relationship with family members, my lovely Sagittarians. You might also feel like you attract people that are very impactful in an auspicious way, who act as counselors or as advisors in some shape or form, with Jupiter transiting the 7th house. For those of you who are already in a relationship, it could also be that the partner is going through some exciting process of growth. Maybe they're stepping up career-wise, they're stepping up professionally, they're being offered new opportunities. So it could be an auspicious, beneficial period for partners at the same time. Jupiter, however, loves novelty. So for existing relationships, you might need to be open to kind of trying out new things together with a partner, maybe new things that are stimulating from a mental perspective, especially. So if it feels like the relationship has become a bit dull, maybe try, I don't know, like attending like maybe some sort of like interesting kind of like conferences together, or like traveling to new places, or kind of like maybe studying something new together, because there's been that need for like novel stimulation with Jupiter in the 7th house. Pluto's entering Aquarius in your 3rd house, 21st of January until the 2nd of September, and then from the 19th of November until the end of the year. Big transformations for the next 2 decades, and they start in 2024, Sagittarians. When it comes to learning, communication, mental, logical kind of like skills that you put into practice on a day-to-day basis. So transformations on these fronts for the next few for the next 20 years, but they start in 2024. Some of you may change completely the way that you communicate, the way that you share your opinions, the way that you express yourselves. Some of you might especially those of you who have siblings, might see siblings going through some sort of like drastic life-altering changes. Maybe they're moving countries, maybe they're getting married and having children, but definitely it feels like the life of siblings is not going to stay the same. On the contrary, there is a sense of positivity and optimism coming from this, especially in June, when Pluto links nicely with Jupiter. You might be super happy for your siblings. You might be super happy for where things are headed for them. I would say you might feel like you're compelled to bring to the surface maybe information or kind of like aspects that existed within you, Sagittarians, that you were not having such an easy time communicating about. And with Pluto entering your 3rd house, it might feel like you really need to communicate about the deep stuff, the traumas, the hurt, the suffering. And as painful as sometimes that could feel, especially around June, it might feel like bringing this material to the surface in your communication actually strengthens and empowers and opens up a new way of experiencing connection in relationships that is making you really happy. I'd say. The North Node is transiting your house of children and creativity the entire year. Sagittarians, I love this because it's supporting your creative self-expression. So if you are involved in any creative, in any sort of like creative activities or projects, the North Node is saying, okay, yes, the cosmos is on your side. The cosmos is also supporting growth through children. So there could be news of pregnancy. There could be novel experiences, enriching experiences that your existing children go through in 2024, especially during the eclipse season coming up in March, April. So I would pay attention middle of March until the middle of April in particular. Sagittarians, you might be doing some releasing of friends and groups of people that you were a part of and saying goodbye to old organizations. Again, March, April, as well as around the eclipse in October, 2nd of October of next year. If you're cleaning up your circle of friends, if you're cleaning up the organizations that you're a part of, that's fantastic, because not everything is meant to last forever on any front. And of course, I have to mention the Mars retrograde, 6th of December until the 24th of February. It starts in your 9th house and then it goes into your 8th house, the Mars retrograde. Activities that involve courage and action and moving forward, connected with traveling, legal matters, long distance, connections with foreign lands and foreign countries, as well as activities connected with debts, taxes, and other people's money. They might not go in this sort of like straightforward, like linear fashion. Sagittarians, on the contrary, there could be a little bit of like stop and start, maybe having to go over the action plan, maybe having to slow down, maybe feeling frustrated in the fact that you're not getting what you want and you have to kind of like go back and forth and negotiate and so on. Remember not to act rashly, especially when Mars is retrograde. This is not a time for rushing, because rushing can have potentially like I don't want to say disastrous, but like negative impact on your financial life, on debts, credit cards, and so on. So yeah, just kind of like take your time to think things through.
Yeah, not the time for major investments.
I'd say so. I would say so. Yes.
Right. Okay, so moving on to Capricorn rising. You can listen for your sun or your moon if you prefer. So Capricorn rising, let's talk about your professional life changing. Major transformations with the South Node still being in your 10th house. We started that in July of 2023. It lasts until pretty much the end of 2024. You have a full year of rethinking your career. Take a look back at mid-October 2023. We had the solar eclipse in your house of career that could have potentially introduced either new spiritual practices, new spiritual interests, or encouraged you to let go of something professionally. So based on what got let go of or what you were rethinking, you will see that culminating in the lunar eclipse we're going to have in Libra in your 10th house on March 25th. So that eclipse is ruled by Venus and Pisces in your 3rd house. So I wonder if you're finding new ways of using your skills, if you're sort of leaning more heavily into writing, if you're reaching out to your community and sort of rethinking what is worth investing your time, and also who can be your source of support. I think there is going to be a solar eclipse in Libra on October 2nd. So that professional change continues with this solar eclipse, potentially offering new opportunities. But you're definitely, I think, like with North Node being in your 4th house and the solar eclipse in Aries happening on April 8th, a lot of your focus, a lot of your attention is going to home, family, and living situation right now. And basically the career is very much impacted by that. So maybe you're moving, maybe you are rebuilding, renovating, maybe you're starting a family, and so you need to start to do work that is more remote, that lets you have more freedom, that lets you have more changes in your schedule. The North Node eclipse on April 8th can definitely bring some kind of important changes to your living situation, especially because Mercury is also retrograde at the same time. So your living situation changes, your family dynamics change. At the inner core level, 4th house is also comfort and security. So I think something is changing on that level. You are rediscovering comfort. You are rediscovering security. You're finding more sort of confidence and joy in where you live. So, and then career tends to transform in the process as well. Pluto is going into your second house. That is another sign of professional transformations. I'm born with Pluto in the second house, and I studied so many things. I did so many things. It's like, just be ready for the next 20 years. You're not likely going to stay in the same career. If you are, you're probably going to embrace some kind of different role, maybe find more power, maybe start doing work that is very different. Pluto spends most of the year in Aquarius. There's a little bit of like final touches in Capricorn between January 1st and 20th, and then September 1st, November 19th. But you can breathe out a sigh of relief because you're done with a really long transit of Pluto through your first house since 2008. How has it been for you? How many sort of mini transformations have you experienced, or maybe maxi transformations? Rox was talking about her friend in the beginning of the video, the friend that has changed not only physically, but went through a lot of transformation. So if you're a Capricorn rising, you can probably, celebrate how far you've come and how much you've grown. And now you take this knowledge, and for some of you, Pluto in the second house for the next 20 years would be about influencing other people, taking your knowledge and becoming sort of more powerful. Pluto represents, second house represents how you make money. So with Pluto in the second house, you can start doing work that is a lot more like research driven, therapy driven, healing type work. You will become more intuitive about resources. You may have to deal with some kind of control issues and fears around money, around, kind of maybe deal with lack mentality, maybe deal with your fear of not having enough. And then once you do that, you will be more willing to sort of, build up your confidence, let go of old patterns. You may even start sort of investing and become more financially savvy to a point that you may start giving advice to your friends potentially. Saturn is staying in your third house. We're going to have an eclipse in your third house on September 17th. So there's a lot of sort of focus on your mind. Saturn in the third can be a little bit heavier. It could be the time when you're either more critical of yourself or there's more pressure around your ideas. Maybe you're learning new things. Maybe you're writing something. Maybe you're struggling with inspiration. Maybe you're like implementing new structures at your job, learning some kind of software. And at times it feels like there's less play and more work. I would invite you to try and still find play to, put some creative writing. If you're doing a lot of writing for work, try to focus on happy thoughts. Try to sort of use the Saturnian dedication to reprogramming your mind potentially. You can also find yourself like involved in some kind of education project that maybe started last year in March and lasts for three years or so. And yeah, like I think the way you communicate becomes like there's more authority to it. There's also more weight to your words. And the eclipse on September 17th will introduce brand new themes of eclipses that will, continue through 2025, 2026, that will bring attention to your house of communication, your house of writing, your house of community, and will potentially bring changes to those areas. You may sort of start communicating in a different way. You may start a business, some kind of spiritual business. You may own your knowledge on a different level, I think. But first, you're likely to have to release something and let go of an old way of communicating, writing, expressing yourself, doing things so that you can open space for something new, right? We're going to have South Node in Virgo. So letting go of maybe letting go of like being too critical, too analytical, critical of yourself, and focusing more on the imaginative. So your imagination gets a boost here. Love Jupiter in your fifth house until May 25th. So fertile. For anyone who wants to have babies, this is the time to have babies. If you're like, babies are not for me, creativity, romance, self-expression, athletic pursuits, even, sort of gambling, but like don't go too crazy. But Jupiter in the fifth house can be really good for your good luck and for love and for sort of knowing your worth, I think, on a deeper level. Jupiter conjoins Uranus on the 20th of April. So between April and May, you have this expansive, opportune energy, new ideas, a chance to do your life with more fun. I think Jupiter and Taurus would want to like savor every moment. So whatever it is, it could be a love opportunity and development, it could be creative, it could be parenthood related. Jupiter and Uranus could be also very sort of like, you know, okay, we're struggling to get pregnant, let's adopt a kid, or let's like go and do IVF, some kind of unique sort of opportunity that comes into your life, which could be very, like very eye-opening and exciting. And romantic. Let's not forget about fifth house being romantic too. So that is April, May. Between late May, June 2025, Jupiter will be in your sixth house. That might bring more work. Jupiter will be squaring Saturn in your third in August and December. So you're still sort of, I think you're getting excited about new possibilities. You're maybe kind of playing with different projects and ideas, and sort of be careful of taking on too much, because your schedule can get too overwhelming, too heavy, too hectic. And that is especially in August and December. But you can also experience financial benefits in June when Jupiter is trining Pluto in your second house. So like explore ideas related to health, ideas related to well-being, you know, see doctors if you need to see them. This could be the time when you meet better doctors, when you find better way of navigating your health, but just be careful of like overloading yourself. And last but not least, Mars goes retrograde from your 8th house into your 7th house from December 6th until February 23rd, suggesting a need to examine your relationships. And I think examine relationships for like very sort of practical concerns, you know, who does the dishes, who takes out the garbage, who pays the bills, because there might be an element of like frustration that maybe you're giving too much. I think Capricorn risings tend to be pretty generous because Leo is their 8th house. But I think you're sort of needing to examine what kind of contracts, agreements, and relationship patterns are outdated. And this is Capricorn rising.
I can actually second that with Leo being in the 8th house of Capricorn risings. It's almost like a source of pride how much they give to others. It's like, yes, I'm so generous and I'm bestowing upon you. And I've also noticed this getting them into trouble, because they kind of like extend themselves and they're kind of like this sort of like, I am like this generous king, and then they're like up to here in debt. I'm like, man, what's going on? Why are
and then people don't reciprocate it, and they're like, yeah.
Life is so hard. So, sorry, I'm not gonna go there.
I mean, we so appreciate you, Capricorn risings, for that, but maybe there is some like different financial strategy that you need to come up with.
Yeah, to take into account. Okay, so Aquarius, let me put in the timestamp. Dun 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 dun.
Rox, you're muted.
My apologies. I don't know what happened there.
We're good now.
Aquarians, Pluto is coming into your corner in 2024 for the next 2 decades. You've been getting a little bit of a taster of Pluto and Aquarius this year in 2023, March until kind of like the summer until June. What can you expect? So especially if you're an early Aquarius rising, or if you've got planets in the early degrees of Aquarius, between 0 to 2 degrees. Planets or angles, the midheaven, the IC also, they also count. You're going to feel this energy the most, Aquarians. So prepare yourselves, Aquarians, for 2 decades of stepping into your power, of receiving power, of being given power. So Pluto coming into your 1st house is going to ask you to embody Plutonian values. Pluto is all about power, control, transformation, death and rebirth. And you might feel like life is pushing you to somehow embody these qualities. So you might, for the next 2 decades, you might actually step into a position of kind of like transforming systems. You might be given power in your work, for instance, and you're going to be able to say, this structure stays, this system goes. We're going to rebuild this from scratch. We're going to destroy this kind of like, I don't know, like branch, because it's no longer working. We're going to kill it so that we can grow something else. So you're probably going to receive this power. Very, very careful, because Pluto is, especially in evolutionary astrology, it's very strongly associated with karmic ties and kind of like karmic load and karmic material. we can become power hungry. We can become power obsessed. We can become obsessed with control. We can become paranoid. We can become, yeah, like, I don't know, that person who's always on the lookout, kind of like thinking that someone's out there to get them and to stab them in the back. Pluto entering Aquarius, however, is also probably going to ramp up your abilities as an investigator, your abilities as someone who kind of like digs deep under the surface and kind of like penetrates the truth of the matter and doesn't take things at face value. Don't be surprised if people start looking at you over the next 2 decades, Aquarius risings especially, and say things like you're intimidating, or like, oh my God, I know that I can't just kind of like act all like lighthearted around you. There's kind of like there's a certain kind of like heaviness, but also depth to the Pluto energy. It's like, I mean business. You don't want to cross me with Pluto. I have noticed people with Pluto transiting their first house going through complete transformations physically. So I've noticed people kind of like changing their physical body, going through surgeries. Especially I've noticed aesthetic, like kind of like aesthetic plastic surgeries with Pluto in the first house. People losing a lot of weight, for instance, not necessarily not putting on weight, generally losing, because Pluto is kind of like, it purges things and it kind of like strips us down to our essence. A very significant transformation of who you are on an identity level, of how you show up into the world. And especially in 2024, Aquarians, a transformation on a personal level because of the changes that are happening when it comes to your value system, but also when it comes to your financial life. Essentially, you might be feeling much more dutiful and serious and practical and responsible and grounded in terms of how you utilize money, resources, finances in 2024. And that is probably also going to be reflected in the changes that are happening on a personal level. So whatever is happening in your money sector is going to impact your identity and how you see yourself and who you're turning into, because you're definitely not going to be the same person at the end of this transit, Aquarians. Now, I am liking June in particular when Pluto links very beautifully with Jupiter. It feels like here you're having like a deep, profound aha moment, and it almost feels like you're discovering something deep down inside of you that you did not know existed. Maybe like a buried hidden resource, like a buried hidden talent. You could be discovering a passion or a hobby or something that you really enjoy that completely alters you, that is going to transform you for years to come. And you might be very surprised. It's like, I didn't know that I had this in me. And it could become something that you're quite kind of like focused, I want to say even obsessive about, but it seems like it's happening in an auspicious way. In a way, it's kind of like pushing you to think differently, to open yourselves up to new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world. My dear Aquarians, there's also a possibility, I'm going to put it out there. So Jupiter, the great benefic, is going to go into Gemini in your 5th house, 25th of May until June of 2025. An expansion of your creative project, an expansion of your creative energy, an expansion and maybe a sense of stretching yourselves and of growing in terms of passions, hobbies, creative self-expression, entertainment, but also an expansion through children is very, very possible. So could children start having this sort of like transformative effect upon you, Aquarians, especially as of the second half of 2024? Yes, possibly. I mean, some people could get pregnant for the first time. Some people could maybe start working with children, for example, and it could be like a life-altering experience. So I'm liking this. Speaking about Jupiter transiting the 5th house, so Aquarians, you're gonna love this. Big fun. Big on entertainment, big on enjoying yourselves. Jupiter says yes. Now's the time to have fun. Now's the time to party. Now's the time to well, to really learn that thing, or kind of like study that topic that you were kind of like drawn to or like interested in, and to say, okay, I'm going to do it for me. I'm excited to like sink into this and learn how to, I don't know, speak Spanish, or I'm excited to kind of like join this community and take classes and make new friends, and develop myself through my passions and hobbies. Jupiter is going to bring ample opportunities to party, to be entertained, but also ample opportunities for dating. The fifth house is the house of romantic love. Ample opportunities to connect mentally with romantic partners, but also with friends, or a combination of the two. And Anastasia has said it. I'm going to say it again. I have noticed many times when people get pregnant, Jupiter transits the fifth house. So it is the yes planet for fertility reasons and purposes, but also the yes planet when it comes to attracting kind of like maybe work-related opportunities with children, maybe spending more time with children. So it doesn't necessarily have to be related to family matters. Jupiter is going to continue to transit your house of home and real estate and property until the 25th of May. So pretty much first half of 2024. Jupiter says yes if you're looking to buy a home, to move into a larger place, to increase and to expand upon your real estate sector in some shape or form. And it is supporting you, maybe when it comes to making changes and shifts in terms of home and living situation. There could actually be some sudden changes and shifts coming up on this front, Aquarians, that you might be made aware of, especially second half of April, with Jupiter coming together with Uranus in this part of your chart. So there could be like a sudden, out of nowhere opportunity to maybe to move, to relocate. But there could also be like a sudden opportunity coming up if you wanted to buy a house, if you wanted to buy a home, if you wanted to kind of like make this sort of like radical shift in terms of your living situation. Uranus coming together with Jupiter in the fourth house might say, okay, now's the time. It's the perfect kind of like environment. It's the perfect kind of like setup. You've got to move fast. You've got to make the changes when? This very second, this very moment. There could also be some sort of like sudden, unexpected good news connected with money and finances in the second half of April, and maybe you're going to utilize some of this when it comes to your home and family and property related goals. I'd say, Aquarians. The North Node is transiting your third house the entire year in Aries, so you're probably going to kind of like develop your logical, rational mind, learn new skills, maybe learn to communicate in a new way, and you're probably also going to release some of your old existing beliefs and philosophies and worldviews. And I have to mention this: Mars is going to be retrograde. 6th of December until the 24th of February. The retrograde starts in your 7th house and then it goes into your 6th house of health. Actually, so pretty much second week of December until the end of the year, Mars is retrograde in your house of relationships. Old issues, old conflicts, old arguments with partners might come up. Partners might be particularly temperamental and might have a particularly short fuse, and it could all blow up very, very intensely. I want to say a partner with a bruised ego is something to watch out for. End of December, Aquarian. So kind of like tread carefully, especially because you might say something that they take the wrong way, or they could be very kind of like triggered by your words. And that is
anything that wasn't solved during Venus retrograde in 2023, August, September, like, look out for that coming back, Aquarius rising.
That's right. Because that's where the Venus retrograde happened. Exactly.
So Pisces, right? If you have been with us waiting for Pisces risings, thank you for your tremendous patience, right? So Pisces, the biggest thing that is still happening for you that I want to start with is Saturn in your first house. Saturn went into your first house in March 2023, stays in your first house the entirety of 2024. So you're still in this period of growth. You are Saturn right now. You're maybe feeling a little bit heavier. You're maybe feeling a little bit more serious. You're feeling pressures around your health, whether they are imposed by an injury or a health issue, or they're self-imposed because you're feeling like you need to start taking better care of yourself. Saturn teaches you the lesson of time management. It teaches you to be more grown up. It teaches you to be more mature, to be more sort of in control of the choices that you can make and in control of, the decisions, the feelings you have. So many of you, I think, are going through these like growing pains on some level. There's going to be a big eclipse, the first eclipse in Pisces Virgo series in September, jumping kind of later to the later part of the year. We're going to have an eclipse in Pisces, a start of a new cycle where you're letting something go before something new can happen in your life. So it's an interesting year because Pluto is also transiting through your 12th house majority of the year. And so on some level, you're looking at your blind spots, you're looking at your self-defeating tendencies, you're becoming more aware of everything that you do not do, everything that you escape, everything that you avoid, and you're needing to clear that. Even the eclipse in September to me is suggestive that you're like needing to let something go. And they can be like, the self-defeating patterns can be connected to relationships. Maybe you're too kind, maybe you're too generous, maybe you're too empathetic. One of my astrology teachers, Sam Reynolds, is a Pisces rising, and he always says, thank God for my Leo moon, because otherwise his Scorpio sun just wants to dig deep. Pisces wants to help everyone, and Leo moon is the only one what's in it for me. So he's like, thank God for that. Otherwise, I would just sell all of my clothes, basically. So like, I think here with like Pluto in the 12th house, you're finding empowerment through release of bad habits, through release of self-defeating tendencies. And you're healing, and you're becoming more aware of your gifts and talents, and you're becoming more aware of your spiritual sort of connection to something. You're needing, I think, even with Saturn in your first house, you're needing to establish something outside of yourself that could be a great source of support. So for some of you with Pluto in the first house, there might be an invitation to, develop a spiritual practice, start meditating, start doing yoga, start seeing a therapist, right? Like, do not hesitate to ask for help. Do not just be the person who like takes on the pain of others. Like, it's okay to share your frustrations with other people. So Pluto in the 12th is very much about spirituality, about addressing something self-defeating, about becoming sort of more self-aware, maybe letting go of something, maybe really like needing to. It might be interesting because like, Pluto will not gonna be in your 12th house ever again. And Pluto, for some of us, will never be in the 12th house period, right? So it's a major like 20-year cycle. Like, I'm born with Pluto in the second house. It's not going to make it to my 12th house, never, right? But for you, it's going into the 12th house and saying that there's like some things that you can no longer hide from. And I think like Saturn is maturity, Pluto in the 12th house, like you're going through these like deep sort of realizations, and you're having to release something so that slowly you can begin again, especially with that like eclipse in your first house in September. You're closing a chapter, and then you're going to start having solar eclipses in your first house in 2025. So more sort of spotlight to you, more attention to your knowledge. Jupiter, the ruler of your first house, your ruler is in the third house until May 25th, 2024. Empowering your words, encouraging you to be more optimistic. We spoke about Saturn being in the third house for Capricorn risings, where they feel the heaviness. You actually feel sort of more cheerful right now. You feel more capable, more able to change the world, maybe sort of more confident in your knowledge, or you're building that confidence. Jupiter in the third, especially around April, May, when it comes together with Uranus, could be a source of sudden, unique opportunities, unique sort of breakthroughs in your everyday life, changes around your schedule, changes around communication, changes around education, where you're becoming a teacher. Some of you might move, some of you I think your everyday life is changing, and for different people, it could mean very different things, right? For some of you, it could mean starting a business. For somebody else, it could mean like saying no to something that's been like bugging you and overwhelming you because you're choosing to have a better flow through your day. But look for sort of writing opportunities, maybe new sort of role in the community, a chance to become more influential in the community. Pisces, Jupiter just has been in Pisces like about 2 years ago, and you started a brand new cycle of like kind of reinventing yourself, showing up as a teacher, as a mentor, as a guide. So Jupiter in the third, I think, is a chance to solidify your place in the community, whether it is by writing, whether it is by teaching, whether it is by like volunteering more. You can definitely benefit, I think, right now through your connections with like siblings, neighbors, people around you. And April, May are especially good for that. Jupiter goes into your 4th house between May 25th and June 9th, offering opportunities to move, to invest in real estate, to benefit through sort of real estate or property management or anything like that. Of course, you're still dealing with that square to Saturn in August and December. And as much as you're like sort of willing to start new things, become a parent, right, or move, you're still, I think your first duty is to yourself. So you may have to deal with some kind of like responsibility between like, well, my family needs me, or I want to like, you know, I want to move, or I want to do this, but there is still some kind of sort of, you know, duties to your health, maybe some kind of procedures you still have to do, or like just sort of overall busyness that you're dealing with that you have to confront. So there might be, you know, there might be a little bit of like balancing, juggling a bunch of balls that you're doing at this time. June is good though. In June, Jupiter in your 4th house of home and family trines Pluto in the 12th house, which could be very healing. It could also be an unexpected opportunity coming from like some like hidden, unique source where you get a chance to move, you get some kind of, you know, benefit from a family member. There's just like some type of opening. But I can also see this being more like spiritual and healing. For some of you, maybe you're moving because 12th house has classically been a place of like, you know, isolation, foreign land. So you might be moving somewhere far, far away. Eclipses, other eclipses, we have North Node in your 2nd house of money and values, South Node in your 8th house of debts and taxes. So big financial shifts. Overall, for the better. I think in general, you're becoming more in control of your resources. You're shifting from the person who owes money to others, or who maybe is waiting for a payment from someone, or someone who's like entangled with others, to someone who's more independent. Especially look at the eclipse in April 8th. There's definitely, you know, Mercury is also retrograde here. So you're rethinking your financial strategy. You're maybe figuring out how to grow your money, how to make investments, how to be more financially independent. And then eclipses on March 25th and October 2nd are all about looking at your dynamics with others, maybe having some tough conversations, maybe figuring out how you can have like relationships that are more equal instead of one person relies on other person, sort of like creating more agreement, right? Like healthy Libra expression is balanced and fair, but not sort of people pleasing. So there is an invitation there to try and be more fair and just, and especially to yourself, right? Like starting with yourself and then with other people. I feel like so much of my, like, I'm born with North Node in Aries and Jupiter in Aries, and I'm always like, people, don't forget yourself. Do not forget yourself. And finally, Mars will be retrograde between your 6th house of health and your 5th house of joy, pleasure, fun. Also 6th house of work between December 6th and February 23rd. So at the end of the year, you will have to take a look at your health. You will have to take a look at your work. Maybe ask whether you're getting enough recognition, because your 6th house is Leo. When Mars is retrograding there, you may sort of feel like you're not appreciated enough. You may be also questioning whether your work is giving you enough fun, whether you're doing something that is fulfilling, whether you're doing something that is enjoyable, needing to rethink some habits around health, some habits around fun and pleasure with the 5th house, maybe sort of, you know, address some kind of negative tendencies, some kind of bad habits in relationships and in health, and perhaps seek inspiration. If you feel at the end of the year that inspiration is lacking, you may sort of have to look back at the old projects and old sources of inspiration. And this is it. We did it.
3 hours, 20 minutes, folks. We tried to do this in like 3 hours, but like obviously we had a little bit of a what's it called? The Mercury retrograde snafu. The timestamp for Virgo is 2 hours 0508. So if someone's asking for the Virgo timestamp, you can like scroll through the live chat.
Rax, do you have any announcements? Anything you're offering before we sign off?
If you want to
for
work with
business stuff?
yes, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. Straight to the services section to book readings and consultations with me. And for people to know, I'm already taking bookings for February, just in case folks are wondering. Over to you, Anastasia.
And with me, go to anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'm currently running a discount on 2024 readings. Use the code 20 letters, 24 numbers to save $20 or save $40 by booking a recorded reading and get my planner. I have worked on it for a while and it's a perfect tool to maximize your year. And we do have to run because there is other, things that are
other commitments for the year. So good to see everyone. It was a pleasure as always.
As always. And thank you everyone for being so supportive and for loving our collaborations. It's always super encouraging, I think, for us to keep doing this. And have a beautiful 2024.
To an amazing 2024.
Okay.
Bye. See you on the other side, everyone. Bye.